A boy is standing at a bus stop and wondering when the next bus will arrive. Suddenly he notices something and turns his head with interest. He sees that some crack is starting to grow on the floor and is approaching him. Suddenly he stops feeling support under his feet and falls into some abyss with loud screams. He opens his eyes and a girl with long hair and large white wings appears before him. She says with a smile how unexpected this is. Several hundred years have passed since a human foot has set foot here, especially one as young as our hero. She is a little surprised. The boy opens his eyes wide and wonders with admiration if this is really a person, then he thinks it is an angel. He stands up abruptly, looks around quickly and asks her what this place is. She says that it is nice to meet him. She says his name, Shirosaki Reito. She answers his question by saying that it is a space that exists between worlds, something like the space between the stars. Basically, this place is between the world he lived in and another dimension. He was banished from the dimension he lived in. That's how he ended up here. Then she adds with a smile that, by the way, he won't be able to return to the world he lived in. He screams in shock. The girl explains that he was just sucked into a crack, so he accidentally fell into a hole leading to the lower level. She introduces herself as a creature that controls the space between worlds. Her job is to transport those who end up here to another world. He excitedly shouts at her to wait a minute. He asks if there is no way he can return to his world. She says with a slightly sly smile that she can't, there's no way to do it. She adds that it can be called a failure. He can consider it an accident. He says that it can't be. She asks him to try his best in the other world. Reito begins to think that he can't even say goodbye to anyone because he was suddenly transported to another world like this. He clenches his fist and begins to think that if he can't go back. He asks her abruptly what this other world is. The girl is surprised and asks if he has already made up his mind. She waves her wand and says that this is a fantasy world. He doesn't understand and asks again. The girl asks him if he likes RPG games. In this world there are real monsters and different races like gnomes and elves. Then she looks at him and adds something else. When he gets to the other world, his body will be rebuilt. He screams in surprise. What does this mean? What will happen to his body? She replies that his soul and memories will remain intact. It is very important that his body adapts to another world. He starts to writhe and asks how this could have happened. Suddenly he feels something and does not understand what is happening to his consciousness. The girl says that if he wants to know anything else about this world, he can call her mentally. She knows everything about it, so he can ask whatever he wants. He rubs his forehead as if his mind is in a fog. He says that since he can ask anything, what is her name? At first, she is surprised by such a question. Then, with a smile, she answers that she is Iris. She is the one who controls the space between the worlds. If he has any problems, then he should not hesitate to contact him. She is usually free, so she can answer him at any time. Reito slowly loses consciousness. His eyes gradually close. He barely asks her to promise. Suddenly, he hears something. He hears two people arguing. One asks what is going on. A person close to him calms him down, but he rudely shouts at the person to shut up and adds that she was so encouraging when she said it was a boy. Reito recognizes the human voice. He sees the face of a man with stubble and a mustache. He points at it and asks what kind of trash it is. Suddenly, he throws Reito himself. He sees his small hand in flight and realizes that his body has shrunk. His mom catches him. Here he realizes that this is not the case at all. He wonders if he has really become a baby. His mother hugs him and shouts at the man. What is he doing? This is his child. The man screams that it is his fault that he put his hope in someone like her and orders her to take this cursed child and get out. The girl, in tears, obeys him, says goodbye to him, and finally says that she loved him very much. He only rudely shouts that this is enough, so let her disappear from his sight. A girl on a hot air balloon plane with a haggard face asks a soldier where he is taking them. He apologizes and says that they cannot answer her. The girl wonders why this happened at all, because His Majesty said that this child cannot become king. He even said that he does not exist, but this is their son. Reito begins to understand that this is his mother. He reaches out and tries to say something, but only baby sounds come out. His mother hugs him tighter, asks for forgiveness, and assures him that everything will be fine, so he can go to sleep. Reito doesn't understand what's going on at all. He opens his eyes and realizes he is outside with his mother. She asks if he is awake. She tells him that they are almost at their new home. In front of him, the butler bows to them and says that they have been waiting for their arrival. She asks who they are. Reito looks around and sees a large mansion. The butler replies that they are the ones who were entrusted with this mansion by the king's order. They swear to serve her. She asks if His Majesty has really fallen in love with this child. He replies that he doesn't know they take care of children like her, so she shouldn't worry. He tells her that no one here will oppress him. The girl breathes a sigh of relief and says that this is good. Reito thinks to himself, what does this mean, children like him? The butler asks her to follow him, and that they have already prepared a room for him. Reito falls asleep. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself in a cozy room, his mother wishing him good morning. She lifts him up and tells him that Reito is his name and asks if he likes it. He makes a happy sound and thinks to himself that he had the same name in the previous world. She kisses his forehead and says that now they can live here peacefully. She puts him to bed and says that it is time to eat, so let him wait a little. Reito muses that he seems to have safely traveled between dimensions. There is still a lot he doesn't know. He remembers Iris saying that he can ask her if he has any questions. He closes his eyes and decides that he needs to mentally call her and says her name. Then she comes out, says hello, and asks if he can hear her. Reito gets scared and screams. Iris says that it seems that he was reborn as a human baby quite successfully. Reito looks around in fear and doesn't understand where the voice is coming from. Iris laughs and asks if he's surprised. She says not to worry, they are in communication mode now, time is stopped, so there will be no problems even if the conversation takes a long time. Reito thinks that's why his body doesn't obey him. He asks Iris where he is now. She replies that in the kingdom where ordinary people like him live, this mansion is located on his territory. She adds that he was born into a royal family. Reito immediately remembers how his father looked at him with hatred. Iris now understands that he was born in rather difficult circumstances. His father, the king, disliked him and kicked him out of the palace. Reito asks what will happen to him now. Iris throws her arms out to the side and says she has no idea. Reito gets angry and shouts that when they first met, she said she knew everything about this world. She says that she must not have explained everything properly. She explains that it is true that she knows everything about this world, but he came from another one, so she cannot see his future with her powers. Reito turns his head and says with a sigh that everything is fine after all, no one knows the future. Then he asks why he understands the speech of this world. She answers that it is because of a skill called translation. She asks him to try to say the word status. He obeys and says, after which a window of characteristics appears in front of him. He gets scared and asks what it is. Something like a game menu pops up. She replies that it is a spell called status. All people in this world can use it. She tells him he can use it to check his status. He is surprised and says it is magic. Reito asks if it's because he has the translation skill, that he can understand what his mother and other people are saying. She replies that it's absolutely true. Because of that, he doesn't need to learn the language. She asks if he's quite lucky, isn't he? Then she notices something and thinks seriously. Reito tenses up and asks what a profession is. She asks, because when he was born, he was called the cursed child, he must be wondering why, right? Reito asks if she knows the reason. She replies that she does, and that he was kicked out of the palace because of his profession. Reito asks if it's because of the support mage and alchemist. She answers that it is true. Before telling him about his profession, she decided to explain to him the basics of this world. He is told that he lives in the kingdom of Baruteros, which is ruled by his father, King Baruteros XIII. Before this king, there was his father's brother, but he died of illness, after which his father inherited the throne. His brother has 3 daughters, and because the previous queen died, his father adopted and raised them. Reito asks if the kingdom and the king have the same name, Baruteros. Is that true? She replies that it is. According to the laws of the kingdom, the heirs of the royal blood bear the name Baruteros. She then adds that this is not just a name, and that in the future he will become a representative of the crown. Moreover, if the king does not have a son, the dynasty will end. All because, according to the laws of the kingdom, it is ruled by men. That is why, when he was born, the king was incredibly happy. The problem lies in his profession. Reito excitedly asks what the problem is. Is it really too dangerous? She replies that it is not. She says that his profession is too weak. Reito gets scared. She says that honing her skills is too difficult, which is why no one else has succeeded. Moreover, compared to other professions, the speed of growth and skill development is incredibly slow, and none of his professions have any offensive potential, so he cannot defeat monsters alone. Even if he joins a squad, he will not gain experience, but everything will improve when he grows up. If he tries hard every day and improves his skill, then he will be able to take an active role in the battle. But no one has yet managed to reach this level, so such people have been labeled as having no profession. Reito says that even though he has a bad profession, the king kicked him out of the palace, the heir of royal blood. He asks if this is unreasonable. She replies that it's all because professions play a huge role in this world. In this world, those who don't have professions aren't considered people, they're humiliated, and that's normal in this world. What would the inhabitants think if he became king? There would be a rebellion and the kingdom would be destroyed. She says she is very sorry, but that is the reality. Then she adds again that he is very lucky, because usually children like him are killed. Reito says that it is good that he knows why his father hates him. He smiles and says that he will not worry about the past, but will only think about the future. Iris smiles and says, "What a spirit." He says that she said that people without a profession are not considered people. He asks how she thinks he will be able to survive if he does not think about the future. She answers that it is impossible. Reito asks her to tell him what to do then. Iris happily says that she was waiting for him to say that. She enthusiastically says that in this dangerous world, without possessing strength, it is impossible to survive. She invites him to study together from this very moment. Reito asks if he can become strong. She replies that it's up to him. She will give him advice so he can rely on her. Reito smiles and thanks her, adding that he relies on her. Then he asks, he is a child now, so what about food and the toilet? She replies that his mother or nanny will take care of this. He is a child, so he is not capable of doing this himself. He says with displeasure that he doesn't want this. He may look like a child, but he's already 15 years old. He is almost in tears and says that he cannot allow someone else to take care of his daily needs. Iris asks him to calm down and says that he is not an ordinary child, so she thinks he only needs to be patient for about a year. Reito, out of shame, jokingly asks to kill him. Iris indignantly says, "When did he become a warrior captured by orcs?" She tells him that he is lucky to be reborn and that he should enjoy his second life. She says goodbye. Reito starts to cry bitterly, not understanding why someone should take care of his diapers. Mom comes in and says she's back. He immediately calms down. She picks him up and says it's time to eat. He is afraid and wonders what she means by food. She starts feeding him and he screams inside himself. His mother smiles and says how hungry he is. He continues eating and wonders what will happen to him now. The butler chases after 2-year-old Reito and asks him to wait. 2 years have passed since his reincarnation in this world. In order to learn to walk properly, exploring the estate became his daily routine. He finds a certain door and wonders what kind of room it is. Then a servant grabs him by the clothes and asks him not to do this. The girl scolds him, saying that this is a book storage facility. What does he want to get inside? He twitches and tells her to let him go. This is Reito's personal maid, Alia. She says that he can't even read yet. He keeps shouting that he can read. She lets him go and asks him to behave and stay in the children's room. Reito pouts at her. The maid sees the room and is horrified by such a mess. She humbly begins to clean up. He runs away again, asking for forgiveness along the way. She catches him again and tells him not to dare run away from this room. Reito then tells her to teach him magic. She says disappointedly that it's about that again. She asks if it's too early for the young master to learn magic. She adds that, besides, she's not very good at support magic. He says that it will be enough for him even if he just shows it to him. Alia sternly says no and suggests that they start cleaning seriously. Reito pouts from the refusal. She looks at him and is touched by who is this little piglet they have here. Reito starts cleaning up and calls Alia mean. Alia says that she is not mean at all, she just thinks that magic is dangerous, so she is not going to use it carelessly. Reito says, with pouting lips, that he knows that too, however. He suddenly remembers something and calls Alia. She asks, is it really again? What is it? She turns around but sees that the young master has disappeared. He suddenly appears from behind and hugs her, scaring her to the point of screaming. She turned blue with fear, started sweating, and asked where he came from. He replies that he was behind her the whole time. Didn't she notice? He says it's funny. She says no, definitely not. Ryoto immediately apologizes and says that he just wanted to play a prank on her. Aaliyah is still thinking, even if she somehow didn't notice. She thinks it's strange. He remembers that door, sits on the bed and calls Iris. Iris appears and says that while she thinks he's being a terrible child, he was having a blast at the end of the day. She asks him if he used the stealth skill as a joke so she wouldn't notice his presence. He proudly says yes, and that it was actually a lot of fun. He says that because of this miserable class, he was kicked out of the city, as a result of which he moved here with his mother Ayla. He has no idea what will happen next. But one way or another, he got acquainted with this world. In addition, thanks to Iris's help and advice, he has awakened several skills over these 2 years, namely the Observer, which increases the limits of his observation abilities. Iris says that it's because skills are essential to living in this world, and she suggests that he awaken even more skills. Reito says that he has to stay in the mansion all the time and it's so boring. They don't let him leave the mansion, and the area is surrounded by an iron fence. Reito compares it to a prison. Iris says it's because the facility was originally built to isolate those who needed to be kept away. Reito asks her if she thinks he can climb over the fence and go into the forest. She says with excitement that she advises him not to do this. She explains that there are many monsters living in this forest and that it is a very dangerous place. She warns that if the current Reito goes into the forest, the only thing that awaits him is death. Reito gets scared and asks why this mansion was built in such a dangerous place. She replies that it's the other way around, that this mansion is the safest place, all so that the members of the royal family, Reito and the others, are not exposed to the danger of attacks by dangerous people. Reito ponders and says that it seems he can't go to the forest yet. Iris says that since he's bored, she suggests using this time to learn more skills. She explains that while some skills cannot be awakened because they are tied to certain jobs, there is no limit to the number of skills he can awaken. And since that is the case, she suggests awakening many skills. She suggests that he continue to try hard until he gains sufficient fighting strength. 2 years later, Reito is already 4 years old. He reaches the roof, opens the door, and is surprised that he climbed onto the roof. He remembers the words about there being a secret passage behind the locker. A place like this is full of them. He looks around and says that this place is surrounded by forest on all sides. He wonders when he will be able to leave this mansion. He calls out to Iris in his mind and she appears. He says that it seems that this mansion is full of secrets. She replies that it is, and that this secret passage is one of the escape routes in case of danger. She asks him if the skills are going well. He proudly replies that yesterday he was able to awaken precision and farsightedness. They ask him what he will do today. He replies that since he has awakened so many skills, he thought it might be time to awaken magic. Iris sternly tells him that he is only 4 years old. It is impossible for such an immature body to handle magic. Reito says, offended, that it would be fine if she taught him a little. She replies that even though he has indeed awakened many skills, it is still not enough. She explains that for him, who has a weak profession, more skills need to be awakened, and in order to use magic, these skills will become the necessary foundation. She asks him to continue to train himself in acquiring new skills. Reito answers that he understood her and that he is cutting off the connection. The conversation ends. Reito sighs sadly and says that magic is still unavailable. Suddenly, he starts to get a headache. He says that he knew that continuing communication over a long period of time carries a certain burden. Then Aaliyah comes out and calls. Reito is scared because he was found. She scolds from below. What is he doing in such a place? Didn't she tell him not to do dangerous things? He starts to climb down and says that he is already going down, but his foot slips and he falls down. Aaliyah sees this, drops the watering can, and uses wind spirit magic. This wind forms a small hurricane, which softens his fall. He is surprised. Aaliyah runs up to him. Aaliyah comes to him with outstretched hands and tells him that everything is okay now. But the next second, Reito hits her in the face with his foot. She starts scolding him, screaming that if she weren't here, he would have died. He's still a child. She asks him not to do anything so thoughtless. Tears well up in her eyes. She says that if something happens to the young master, She and Madame will be very sad. Reito regretfully asks her for forgiveness. Alia calms down when she sees him, then holds out her hand and says that since he has thought about his behavior, everything is fine. She asks if he can get up. He gets up and immediately falls because his legs have gone numb. Alia takes his hand as he gets up. He sees flowers. He points to one flower and asks what this flower is called. Alia asks if he is interested in flowers. She says that these are herbs, not ordinary flowers. She shows and says that these are ingredients for making healing potions, despite the huge number of different types of herbs. They can't be planted without the knowledge and skill to grow them. Reito asks if she has that skill. Alia tells him that it's because she's an elf, so she knows a lot about plants. She takes care of this garden. Reito asks her to teach him how to grow. She asks if he knows and understands that this is the work of servants. He does not calm down and still asks. Alia says she doesn't mind, but in return she asks him to stop asking her to show him magic. Reito agrees because he's already seen her, so everything is fine. Alia wonders if that's enough for him. Reito thinks to himself that the skill for growing herbs would be quite useful in his opinion. A year later, Reito turns exactly 5 years old. The butlers and servants congratulate him on his birthday. He sits at the head of the table and thanks everyone. Everyone brings him boxes and asks him to accept their gift. Everyone gives different gifts and Reito thanks everyone. He thinks that everyone in this mansion treats him so well, despite the fact that he is a cursed child. He smiles and thinks that he should be grateful for this. Alia congratulates him and pulls out a small box, saying that it is a gift from her. He takes out a flask from there and asks what it is. She replies that it is a healing potion, which is brewed from herbs that she and the young master grew. Reito thanks her, thinking that the gift is a healing potion. His mother smiles and says that it seems like she's the only one left. She holds out a small chest to him and asks him to take it. She says it's not time to look inside yet. Reito doesn't understand her. She says she was originally going to give it to him when he becomes an adult, but she thinks it's worth giving it to him now. She says that until he grows up, she will keep the key with her, and until then, she asks him to keep it and cherish it. Reito feels that the atmosphere is different from usual. It is true that in this world a person is considered an adult when he reaches 15 years of age. Reito looks at the chest and says that he has to wait 10 years, although he can ask Iris what's inside. He closes it and says he'll put it aside for now. He digs around in the garden with a plant and exhales. He says happily, wiping away his sweat, that he has grown many herbs. Alia calls him and asks if it is not time to rest. They are enjoying a pie in the gazebo. Alia says that, considering everything, it is surprising that he tirelessly takes care of the herbs every day. He replies that it is because growing herbs is fun. He says he wants to grow more different types of herbs, and she awkwardly says he's trying hard. Then she says in a more cheerful voice to let her reward him for his hard work. She asks if he wants to learn an elven game. She played it a lot as a child. Reito asks about the game with interest. She tells him that the rules are simple. He will win if he can stay inside the triangle without going out of it. She will make it difficult for him by trying to push him outside the triangle, so he must be careful. Reito stands inside the outlined triangle. Alia tells him not to worry, because the one trying to push him out has no right to physically touch him, and no objects can be used either. However, she can use magic. Ona uses magic to direct wind at him, causing him to fall backwards. She comes up and holds out her hand, saying that this is how the young gentleman lost. She asks him how he likes this elven game. He says that he can't do anything about it. She uses magic that she didn't want to show him. He calls her a child. She indignantly asks what he's talking about, since she treated him so easily. Suddenly, Reito remembers something. He gets into a triangle again and asks her to try again. Alia is surprised and says she doesn't mind. Reito at this time thinks that this game can serve as a special training. She uses magic. He falls again. A new game begins and everything continues as before. Covered in bruises, Reito stands up, breathing heavily, and asks Alia one more time. She asks him to stop there. She asks for his forgiveness for unexpectedly blowing him away the first time. Reito asks her one more time. She screams and says that this is the last time. She directs the wind, and this time Reito stands firmly on his feet. She thinks to herself that after the first gust he can gradually divert the wind. He continues to stand steadfastly. Aliyah says that he is persistent, so she directs a wind with special power at him. Suddenly, a window appears in front of Reito, notifying him that the combat skill Circle Block has been learned. He rejoices, waves his arms, and directs this wind back to Aliyah. She loses her balance a little and screams. Reito screams and is happy that he succeeded and that he was able to reflect the wind. Aliyah, shocked, asks what just happened. Reito explains that he was trying to see if he could awaken the Circle Block skill. She is surprised to hear that this skill is awakened by fighters. Reito asks if that is strange. Aliyah shouts that it is very strange how a young master with a miserable profession can awaken such skills. Reito can't believe his ears for a moment. Aliyah immediately understands what she said, immediately hugs her and says that she is terribly sorry and that she does not understand why she said something like that. Reito is surprised by her words. He tells her not to worry about it. If she continues at this pace, her clothes will get dirty too. Aliyah starts to cry and says that she is very sorry. Reito understands that Aliyah did not mean anything bad. He also understands that she does not look down on him, but he also understands that it is difficult to change his situation. Aliyah continues to cry and say that she is terribly sorry and asks for forgiveness. At night, Reito talks to Iris and says that in the end, Aliyah treated him well because he is the king's only son. Iris says that although it is terrible, it is quite understandable that if he loses his current position, then no one will vouch for their lives. But it doesn't matter what happens because she will always be his ally, so she asks him not to worry. Reito falls asleep. Reito recalls what Aliyah said about how it was very strange that a young master with a lowly profession could awaken such skills. Reito sighs sadly and calls out to Iris again while sitting by the bed. Iris says she doesn't mind giving him advice, but does he mind? Reito says honestly that he's still upset, but he's thinking about something else right now. He looks up and says he needs to get stronger as quickly as possible. Iris says they'll move on to the next step then. Reito happily asks if by the next step she means magic. She sternly replies that she doesn't, and that at the moment he still can't use magic. But they should learn the skills that match his profession. Reito doesn't understand. Iris says she's going to teach him alchemy. She explains the basics first. The ability to change one type of metal into another is transmutation. The ability to freely change the shape of an object, shape reshaping, and finally the ability to increase the strength and hardness of objects. Material reinforcement. She says that he needs to learn these 3 skills. Reito is surprised that he needs to learn 3 abilities at once. She tells him with a smile not to worry. She thinks that by the end of the day he will easily learn them. He takes a fork and knife and says how lucky he is that he has some metal utensils in his room. After all, he won't be able to practice alchemy in front of everyone. Besides, he can't look Aliyah in the eye. He decides to start by transforming the material. He squeezes the knife and says to himself, strong and hard as a diamond. Strong. Sharp. He opens his eyes, sees the toy on the nightstand, and throws the knife straight at it. The knife pierces the toy, causing it to fall. Reito runs up, picks up the toy, and says that it's amazing, it went right through. He looks at the sharp knife and thinks that it seems like he accidentally used the shape-shifting skill as well. He receives a message that he has learned the alchemical skill of material transformation, and then the skill of shape change. He is surprised that he learned them so easily. He looks at the knife and decides to return everything to normal for now. He says the return to himself. He takes the fork and says that now he will make the fork incredibly hard. He looks at the fork and uses the material reinforcement. Then he takes the knife in his other hand and hits the fork with it. The fork remains firm. He lifts the knife and looks. He says the knife is warped, but the fork is fine and they are made of the same material. He understands that reinforcement makes such a difference. The system notifies that he has learned the material enhancement skill. He calls Iris, but in a different way. She is indignant. Who is he calling Ai-chan? He says that he did not say her full name, but everything worked. She says that they have communicated so many times that she has already gotten used to it. Reito says that profession-specific skills seem to be incredibly easy to learn. She laughs and tells him that he seems to have stumbled upon the secret of this world. He asks her not to exaggerate. Reito says he can't imagine that this power is as useless as they say. He asks why these skills are so underrated. Iris replies that it is true that alchemy-related skills are exceptional, but this power is only temporary. After a certain amount of time, any item altered by him returns to its original form. And she tells him that in his case, the upper limit will be about a minute. He is surprised and says that this is so little. Iris says that in this world, steel is the hardest metal known to man. In other words, the people of this world are able to create metals as strong as steel. She emphasizes that people of this world can do this. He remembers something and says that in the world he lived in, there were many things stronger than steel. Iris says that this is true and that Reito, who has knowledge of another world, can easily create metals stronger than steel. Reito happily says that then it is a wonderful profession. Iris says that, however, magical metals are common in this world and they are much stronger and more durable than steel. In addition, alchemy is based on magic, so the physical abilities of alchemists are weak. In other words, even if he can make a strong sword, he will not be able to use it. Reito thinks to himself that the transformation of materials turns out to be much weaker than he thought. And what about the change in shape and strengthening of materials? Iris says that from now on, skill will be very important. He doesn't understand. Then Iris asks him to open the status window. Iris says that mastery is the number displayed next to his special skills, similar in nature to levels. It shows how much he has used the skill and how skilled he is in it. Reito asks if this means that the more he uses, the higher the number will be. She says that it is true. She says that the maximum efficiency is 5. The higher the level, the easier it will be for his body to cope with the skill. She personally recommends that he start by increasing the level of shapeshifting. She says that if he raises his shapeshifting level high enough, he will be able to use it on more than just metals. He says that he understands. Then he sees that his material conversion level has already grown to 5. Iris says that it's because he used his knowledge from another world. Reito wonders why this transformation is needed at all. It's already at the maximum level, and he's not happy at all. Reito says that he will start training right away then. Iris tells him to try his best. In addition, he can use the metronome from his previous world to practice shapeshifting. He asks if she means the metronome in the music room. Iris tells him, imagining the metronome, to try to make the knife move from left to right in the same way. She says that once he gets used to it, trying to move it faster and with more precision is something she is sure will help him a lot. Reito shouts that this is great and suggests doing it. He holds a knife in his hand and says in his head that he needs to imagine a metronome, moving from left to right. He opens his eyes and still sees the knife he doesn't understand. He's sure he imagined everything correctly, but it's still straight. Why is that? He guesses and decides to first change the material of the knife to aluminum. It is softer and easier to bend. The knife bends. Reito thinks that it's great and that everything went as it should. Now he decides to continue imagining the metronome. While he was thinking, the knife blade just snaps and crumbles into pieces of material. Reito panics and says that it broke and that his mother will give him hell. He starts to think about how he can put it all back together. Then he remembers something and thinks, can't he use shapeshifting in a situation like this? He takes the shards in his hands and uses shapeshifting. The pieces begin to move. He screams what an abomination it is that it moves. He covers his palm with his other palm and thinks that now, if he puts the pieces together and imagines the knife as it was, he opens his palm and sees a whole knife. The system notifies him that he has learned a special correction skill. Reito says that now he can break anything without getting caught, and can now practice on things in the room. He is sitting outside with his palms on the ground. Elia comes out and asks if he can go out already. He says with a smile that he is okay now. Alia says that she is happy and starts walking towards him. Reito stops her and tells her to wait because she can't come here. She doesn't understand him. As soon as she takes a step, she immediately falls down. Reito dug a hole using shape-shifting, but he can't tell her that. He comes up to her and asks her if she is okay. Alia starts to lose her temper and yells at the young gentleman. At this time, Reito's mother notices that Reito's toys are all strange and twisted. She thinks that he must be carrying a heavy burden on his soul, and that is quite disturbing while Alia is chasing after Reito. He tried to do something with the stone, but got a bruise, after which Alia scolded him again. 6 months later, he approaches the door of the nightstand with a fork. He uses magic, and then the magic turns into a key. He is proud that the castles cannot withstand him, who has trained his shape-shifting skill. He opens the cabinet door and takes out a knife with a malicious look. He says that to think that reaching the maximum level of shape-shifting would allow him to do something like that. It just so happens that he discovered this skill during precision training. He holds a knife and causes hypervibration. He looks around and says that he only came here to test it and thinks that this chair will do. He swings the knife, and the wooden chair breaks into pieces. He is surprised because he only lightly grazed it. The chair falls, but he realizes that he does not have a knife in his hand. He looks up to see the knife vibrating through the air. The knife suddenly falls just a few centimeters from Reito's face. He gets scared and falls back. He gets up and sees that the knife has cut through the floor. The knife continues to vibrate. Reito says that such power will be useful in battle too. He puts the knife back. Reito twirls a fork in his hand and says that he must admit that shape-shifting is useful. He can use it in battle and open any lock. He doesn't think for a second about the storage room, which he couldn't get into because of the lock on the door. Alia isn't here either. Reito thinks with a smile that there might be books on magic there. He opens the door and walks inside. He sees only a chair with a desk in front of him. He wonders what it is. He thinks that this is not a storage room, but rather a closet. There is only one bookcase here. He picks up one black book and then is horrified. His eyes widen. He looks at the bookcase and sees that all the books are just pitch black. He asks in surprise what this is. Why are all the books black? He leafs through the book diligently and sees the names of the royal and noble families. He thinks maybe it is some kind of list. Reito realizes that it is difficult to see anything due to the darkness and sees an old lamp there. He uses it and starts flipping through other books, wondering what about the rest. He comes across a line that the cause of death is murder. He flips through and flips through, seeing that both this and that list names and causes of death. Reito wonders if all these books are the same, and more importantly, why are all the deaths recorded here so detailed? Reito wonders if Ali and the others know about these books. He starts flipping through another book and sees something that makes him very surprised. He says that this can't be his and his mother's names are written here, but the cause of death column is empty. Then he realizes that there are people written here who haven't died yet. Then he realizes that people who become a hindrance are killed, but the fact that his name is written here. He gets scared, sweat runs down his face. He closes the book, puts it on the shelf, leaves the room and runs to his place. In the room, Iris says that he finally learned the secret. She explains that the deceased nobles and royals are listed as murders. Reito asks why they are kept in this mansion. Then he says that they are most likely in this mansion because... Iris finishes his thought and says that this is absolutely true because it is isolated from the outside world. It is the perfect place to hide the darkest secrets of the kingdom. Iris says that even if you know about the library, you won't be able to escape from this place. Reito says that the surrounding lands are inhabited by demons. Reito starts to think and asks if that's the case. How do they live here? What about food and everyday goods? Iris replies that they are hidden in the basement, with resupply being handled by a squad of transfer magic. Reito asks if there is something like that hidden underground. Iris says that, by the way, Reito arrived here on an airship. He wonders if there really are such ships here. She says that the only way to get to and from the mansion is by air. Reito then says that they need to start learning to fly. Iris tells him that the magic he used was incredibly interesting. Reito asks if she means super vibration. She says she doesn't think anyone else in this world can do that. Iris takes out her sword and asks him, in order to use this to her advantage, if he would mind learning how to wield a sword. Reito wonders if this is possible despite the fact that he is a magician. Iris tells him that he will succeed. It will take a long time. But why not try? Reito thinks that sounds interesting, so he decides that he will try it. 6 months later, Reito turns 6 years old. Reito swings his sword vigorously while shouting. Aaliyah asks if the last shout wasn't something different. Reito asks her if it's time for breakfast already. She says that it is. Then she gets upset about why he's all sweaty, how long he's been working out, and that he should wash up before breakfast. Reith asks to wait a second, saying that this will be the last one. He aims his sword at the wood and swings it, and then a helmet splitter is used to break the wood. He shouts that it's great. Alia helps him wash up and says that the young master is actually very strange. She wipes his shoulders and says that she has never seen a mage learn swordsmanship. He screams that he is cold. Alia acted strangely for a while, but now everything is back to normal. He thanks her for making him a wooden sword. Alia says she is glad that the young master likes him. Reito asks her to say something. She immediately says that she will not be able to teach in fencing. She says that she is a mage and can't do something so unsightly. She calls him to the dining hall. Reito gets dressed and obeys with pouting lips. He follows her and says how much he wants to fight, he wants to test his strength. She asks him not to act like he is some kind of criminal. After breakfast, Reito exhales and says that he is full, how nice it is for him to have a good meal after hard work. He calls Iris and says he wants to ask her something. He calls her in his mind by another name, and she comes and asks him what he's thinking about. She asks him with a red face how he can address him like that. Reito says that the inhabitants of this world might not understand. Iris says that she is a goddess. All the worlds are in the palm of her hand. She knows a lot about the world from which Reito came. She proudly says that, by the way, he seems to take his sword training seriously. Reito says that he got swordsmanship and helmet splitting, but he can't seem to improve it. It feels like he's stuck. Iris says that it will definitely be difficult to practice in the future if there is no suitable opponent. After some thought, she says that until he finds a suitable opponent to train with, she suggests that they learn a new skill together. Reito happily says that he thought about it too. He asks what skill they should learn next. Iris says that in that case, since he can't wait any longer, she suggests that he start training in magic. He didn't expect this, he screams sharply. And then he smiles widely, realizing her words. Iris says that even though she thinks it's still a bit early, Reito continues to yell at her to quickly teach him magic. Iris says he'll have to wait. Reito starts crying and screaming that no way, and if she doesn't teach him magic, he'll never ask her for help again. Iris says he's turned into a baby. Iris says that if he stops talking to her, then how can she teach him magic? Reito suddenly realizes this and stops crying. Iris suddenly puts on a witch uniform and suggests that they begin their magic lessons. Reito looks and says that for some reason Iris seems different to him than usual. Tay laughs and says that it's because she's in a good mood. She explains that Reito's main role is support magic, roughly speaking. He uses his magic to support his allies, and there are 3 types in total. These 3 types include body enhancement, magic enhancement, recovery enhancement. Reito asks her what exactly they do, and she says that it's a good question. She suggests starting with body enhancement. Magic can enhance his physical abilities. The effect depends on the skill level. She asks what will happen if he reaches the limit of the skill, then answers that his physical abilities will increase 5-fold. She adds that when the effect wears off, his body may shut down due to the strain. She suggests going further and tells him about the magic boost. He can use it to increase the power of his attack magic. If he develops this skill to the limit, he will be able to increase the power 5-fold. Reito shouts that it is incredible. She adds that, naturally, the consumption of magic also increases 5-fold. He immediately changes and begins to say that this is a little... Iris says that finally, there is the recovery enhancement. It enhances the body's natural self-healing powers. It may take longer than restoration magic, but it can heal completely. Reito is surprised and asks if the last skill has any downsides. She says that it is, but the recovery rate is very slow. Then she talks about the best feature of a support mage. It is precisely because he can reach the maximum level in any profession. This is their reserve of magic. Reito says that it's incredible. She smiles and says that it is, and that their magic reserve is incredible. Reito asks what kind of magic reserve is this. She replies that it's just like in games there is magic that there might not be enough for. Generally speaking, most professions are very wasteful in terms of magic. Reito laughs nervously and asks what about the other side. She says that finally, the greatest weakness of support mages. Reito wonders if there are more. She says that the weakness is that they can't use bombardment magic. He doesn't understand. She explains that it is essentially the ability to shoot magical power that turns into something like a beam, which she also calls a magic cannon. Reito asks if she's talking about the beams that shoot out like a gun. She says that the power of combat magic is very great. Even a low-level mage from the apprentice mages can destroy about a dozen goblins with its help. In short, due to its great power, the consumption of magic is also great, so the number of uses is very limited, and it cannot be used constantly. Reito asks, after all, support mages can't use attack magic. She looks at him silently at first, then says that this is not entirely true. She asks him to remember that he can use more than just support magic. As for the rest of the magic that can be used, it's elemental magic. Rito says that it doesn't sound very strong. Iris says that it is called everyday magic and is generally considered weak, but can still be used in combat. Rito thinks about it and says that in other words, support mages can only use not very useful magic, and they are not able to use attack magic, which is the main strength of mages. So we can't expect much combat power from the elemental magic available to him. Iris says that's true. She adds that while one of the downsides of support magic is that it puts a strain on the body, there is a way to deal with it. Rito thinks, then shouts that he now understands. He says it's a boost. Iris says that's absolutely true. He can use the recovery boost on himself to reduce the strain on his body. Rito suggests that she start from there because support magic seems useful. Iris sadly says that it may be so, but support mages still can't cope with bombardment magic. This fact cannot be changed. In this world, support mages are criticized much more than regular mages and swordsmen. After a while, Rito looks out the window and says that despite what Iris said, it's not like he doesn't have abilities, he still has hope. He smiles as he thinks that he is still going to master the power of a support mage, clenching his fists. Aaliyah carries stacks of books and tells Rito that it's time for class and that they will start practicing their alphabet first. Rito is already 7 years old. He tells her that she knows that he can already write. Besides, he has the skill at translation, so there should be no problem. Aaliyah sternly says that no means no, and that just because he can write better than her doesn't mean he can shirk. Rito thinks to himself, can't she see how much he wants to learn more about support magic? Aaliyah says that after he finishes this, they will start studying the differences between the 6 passes. She starts to tell her story, but Rito interrupts her, telling himself. There are 6 different races in this world. Firstly, humans, who make up the majority of the population. They also have some of the most highly developed intelligence. Secondly, the elves, who are distinguished by the longest life expectancy and the most powerful magic. Thirdly, the beastmen, who have features of both beasts and humans. Giants are known for their huge and strong bodies. Demons among all 6 races have a wide variety of abilities and appearances, and their intelligence can rival that of humans. And finally, the palaces, who are by nature quite rowdy, but at the same time very skilled blacksmiths. In addition, it is said that they can create special equipment, like holy swords or demonic blades. As soon as he finishes telling the story, she asks if he is wrong. Aaliyah shouts that it is incredible. She has a feeling that he has memorized this entire book. Rito thinks that he was just telling her what he heard from Iris. Aaliyah says she is so glad he is giving his all to his studies. She suggests they continue studying the history of the kingdom. This is not what he wanted. Rito says how boring it is. When will he find time to train at this rate? The kingdom of Baltros was founded about 300 years ago. It is a human kingdom, known as the largest state formation in this world. Apart from humans, only giants, beastmen, and elves founded their own kingdoms. Be that as it may, in the past the 6 races waged a brutal, bloody war. However, King Baltros, his great ancestor, was able to form an alliance with the other races and put an end to the war once and for all. Rito is surprised, and says that this is the first time he has heard of this. Aaliyah enthusiastically says that the blood of this great man runs through his veins. Family ties with a great man. Does he know? Do not make him great a priori. Then she falls silent, realizing again what she said. Rito sadly says that besides, he won't let him be called part of the royal family anyway. Aaliyah regretfully apologizes to him again. Rito stands up abruptly and says that he didn't mean it that way at all. He remembers something and asks if she can use elementary magic. She doesn't understand at first and asks if he means everyday magic. He says that it is. He asks if she can show him. He wants to see what it is. Aaliyah thinks about it and thinks that it won't be a problem if the master uses everyday magic. Aaliyah says more confidently that she doesn't think it can do any harm. She agrees. Rito is happy and says that it's amazing. Then she suggests starting with a short lesson in magic. He is indignant that there will be another lesson. She says that in their world, magic is divided into 7 elements, and one's affinity for an element is determined mainly by one's race or profession. For example, humans are better at fire magic, while elves like her are mostly affinity for wind magic. By the way, the elements also have compatibility with each other, and the power of magic can depend on the presence of compatibility. Of course, one can increase one's mastery of elementary magic through training, but since it is rather weak, it is not considered combat magic at all. She asks him if he understands everything. He mumbles weakly that he understands. Aaliyah says that's great. Since they're done with the theory, she asks how about she shows him the magic in action. She says that to start, she will show him the basic wind magic that they elves do best. Reito thinks in anticipation, wondering how it will be, whether it will be as powerful as the time when Aaliyah saved him. Aaliyah tells him that since they are talking about elementary magic, he shouldn't expect anything special. She stands up, reaches out her hand, and causes a wind pressure that blows slightly onto Reito's face. He indignantly asks if that's all, and she replies that that's why she told him not to expect anything special. That's what it's for, basic magic. Reito asks her if she thinks he'll be able to use this magic. She says that if you think about it, they've never tested what element the master has an affinity for. The test will be very simple, but in her opinion, this will be enough for now. She tells him if he sees, even though she said that people usually have an affinity for fire magic, sometimes children are born with an affinity for wind magic. She asks why he doesn't try to repeat what she just showed him. She shows him that he should stretch his arms forward like this. He repeats after her and then asks if he just needs to say the spell now. He calls up wind pressure. The system notifies that the combat skill wind pressure has been learned, after which his wind blows away everything in its path. All the books flew, it both freeze in place. After a silence, Aaliyah immediately asks what kind of magic it was. Reito says that she didn't tell him that even elementary magic could be that powerful. She says that usually such power cannot be achieved even with the tendency. But this magic was not inferior in power to hers. Reito says that now he wants to see other elements. She says that she is sure that the lady is capable of using fire magic. He runs out of the room and says that it's great and that they'll see each other later. Aaliyah yells at him to stop because his lesson isn't over yet. The door slams in front of her. He approaches his mother. She asks what he is doing here. Shouldn't he be in class? Reito asks her if she can show him her basic fire magic. She asks him again. Reito says that they are just going through this in class. She says that she understands it and that there is nothing to be done about it, and that it is very good. She raises her hand and summons a fireball. Fire begins to burn above her palm. Reito watches in shock. The fireball starts flying around the room. She says she can even move it. Reito says that it's great, and that it's his turn to try it. He holds out his hand and summons a fireball. The fire also lights up right above his palm. He shouts that he did it and that it's amazing. His mother asks in surprise if he can use it too. She thinks he managed to create such a big fireball on the first try. He blows on the fire and says that it is so difficult to make it move. He turns to his mother. She says that it probably is, but a second later he manages to control the fire. His mother looks at him sadly. Reito thanks her for her time. She says that he can come any time and asks him to try hard in his studies. He runs away, the mother thinks. Who would have thought that at such a young age he would be able to handle such magic? This child must have an incredible aptitude for magic. She begins to cry, thinking that if only he hadn't been born a support mage, then maybe he could have been allowed to become the next king. At this time, on the roof, Reito creates several fireballs. He says that means 4 fireballs is his limit. He thinks that as his skill level increases, the number of fireballs will increase. The number of fireballs will increase. So it's okay. After his mother showed him the fireball spell, he returned to Alya and was able to learn several more spells from her. Earth Elemental, Earth Block, Water Elemental, and Ice Block. Based on the results of his experiments, he seems to be able to handle the fireball much better than the Ice Block. He believes this is what Alya called elemental affinity. He says that whatever the case, all he has to do now is train some more. He starts running and jumps down, using the spell Alya showed him as an example. It lands softly using wind pressure. He shouts that it's great and that it's an absolute success. Although he's willing to bet that Alya and Mother would pass out if they saw this, he decides he needs to be careful. By the way, Alya said that there is a compatibility between the elements, by the way. Fire and wind magic have very good compatibility. Then perhaps it will be possible to use fusion on 2 initial level magics. And if everything goes as planned, perhaps he will be able to get his hands on incredibly powerful magic. He creates several fireballs first, and then he applies wind pressure to them, after which they merge together, and then they fly away far into the sky. He himself didn't understand what it was at all. The system notified that the combat skill, Flaming Spear, had been learned. Reito reads that the flaming spear is a fusion magic obtained by fusing fire and wind magic. He understands that by fusing two types of magic, fusion magic is obtained. He wonders if it can even be called elementary magic. Then he confidently says that he is willing to bet that it can seriously injure someone. Suddenly his head starts to hurt. He falls to his knees, grabs his head, and does not understand what is happening. What is wrong with his head? Aliyah comes up from behind and says that she found something for him. Ona comes up to him and asks him if he is okay. Reito loses consciousness and falls down. He wakes up in his bed, grabs his head again, and groans in pain. He wonders what happened to him. He calls Iris and asks her to tell him. Iris comes and says that she is in touch. In other words, he used too much mana. Reito doesn't understand these words and repeats them out loud. Iris says that it seems like his interest in studying magic has come back to haunt him, but she thinks that he should be congratulated for being able to discover fusion magic on his own. If he trains to master it, she is sure that in the future he will be able to discover something that can compete with the magic canon. Reito says that it's possible. Given his current mana reserves, he bets that training it will be hellishly difficult. Iris thinks there's nothing she can do. She asks him how about taking advantage of that. Reito doesn't understand her. Iris says that he can increase his mana reserves by raising his level by destroying demonic beasts. However, what if she says there's an easier way? She's talking about skill points because Reito has skill points. He doesn't understand anything again. Iris says that he can use them to gain new skills or improve old ones, but if he spends them, he won't get them back, so he should remember that. Reito says he understands and asks if he just needs to learn a new skill. She replies that this is true, and that with it, the load on his body will be minimal, even if he spends all his mana at once. Moreover, it is a unique skill, which means that once he learns it, he will reap its benefits for the rest of his life. Reito asks her why she never told him about the existence of such a convenient system. Iris replies that when people learn about this, they usually become lazy, because it is much easier to acquire skills this way. Iris then bids him farewell and says she's going back to her wonderful time over a cup of tea. Resto sits up and says she's right. His head doesn't hurt that much anymore. He goes back to bed. He thinks that it is from her, the power of a unique skill. With such power in his hands, he will be able to train as much as he wants, even if it takes more time. But here we go again. Training support magic and training fusion magic. So much to do in so little time. But for now, in his opinion, the most important question remains how to throw Aliyah off his back so that there is more time for training. It's been 8 years since his reincarnation, and about 6 months ago, Aliyah revealed that her profession is actually a swordsman. They fight with swords. Aliyah says that he is too naive. From that day on, she began to teach him how to use a sword. He jumps and swings his helmet splitter. It misses. Aliyah dodges the blow with ease. She tells him not to rely too much on his fighting skills. She puts her sword to his throat. She says with a smile that this is her 387th victory out of 3087 fights with him. Reito falls back, sweat pouring down his face. Aliyah tells him that when using a combat skill, the body moves predictably, so that he will be left open when the opponent dodges him. She extends her hand to him and says that she will do it again. His swordsmanship is improving at a rapid pace. She is sure that now he is not inferior in strength to a novice adventurer. She says she means people associated with the Adventurers Guild. Well, basically, they are jacks of all trades. They are known for doing everything for money. From slaying monsters to guarding cities, collecting medicinal herbs, and even helping with household chores. Reito is surprised and says that he had no idea that she knew so much about adventurers. Aliyah says with a smile, well, what can she tell her? In her youth, she was one of them. Reito was very surprised by this. He asks if this is true, and she replies that she was very fortunate to meet the mistress when she was sea crank, so she gave up her life as an adventurer and became her servant. Reito asks if adventurers really have a ranking system, and she replies that of course they do. She explains that the highest rank is S, followed by A, B, C, and so on down to the lowest rank F. Incidentally, there are currently only 10 rank adventurers in the entire world. Reito quietly asks her if adventurers earn a lot. She sighs and says that he immediately talks about money, and that she would be lying if she said no. She approaches him and says that weak adventurers usually don't live long. He gets scared and asks if it's true. He thinks it would be great to be able to freely develop his abilities. He's used to working with skills and all that, and he can confidently say that the number of skills available to him has increased significantly. In fact, he has learned over 50 skills over the past 8 years, and he bets he has learned over 20 this year alone. I mean, Iris certainly said that learning the skills would be much easier once he understood the principle. But who would have thought that he would learn the cutting skill just by looking into the kitchen? He thinks that he wouldn't complain if he got more convenient skills like cooking, but the young master is forbidden to go near the kitchen. He wants to say what good is the skill of cutting up if he can't cook anything? His stomach starts to rumble. He gets out of bed and says his stomach is growling and he wonders if there is anything left in the dining room. He goes to the dining room and finds some apples. He takes a bite and thinks that Iris said that there is a teleportation magic circle in the basement. He opens the closet and sees steps. He wonders where they lead. He goes down the steps into a dark basement. He sees a tightly locked door in front of him. He suspects something and immediately calls Iris. She appears and says that she is in touch. He tells her that he found a door under the dining room that he had never seen before. He asks her if he knows what room it is. Iris tells him that it's an armory, but he doesn't understand what it is. Iris says that even though she called it an armory, it's actually where poisons and murder weapons are stored. Reito gets scared and asks why such dangerous things would be stored here. She replies that it's simple. She says it's so that the royals here who are deemed useless can be disposed of without much difficulty. Reito becomes even more frightened and asks what he means by get rid of her. Iris tells him that since it has come to this, she feels she has to tell him everything. She says that there is a murderer among the servants living in this mansion. Reito's face begins to darken. Iris says that when the kingdom decides that his existence is more trouble than it's worth, they will send her an order to get rid of him on the spot that very hour. Reito is fixated on the fact that the killer is a woman. He thinks that it can't be because there is only one girl among the servants living in the mansion. He asks Iris directly she is lying. Is it really Aaliyah? Iris tells him that this is true. She reveals that her real professions are spirit mage and assassin. Ona believes that the only reason she said she was a swordswoman was to make him lower his guard. Reito counters that Aaliyah is supposed to be Mother's maid. Iris replies that this is true, but she is also a member of the Black Shadow, an organization of assassins who serve directly under the throne. Reito says that this cannot be true. Iris asks him for forgiveness and says that she is afraid that in the future she may become his enemy. Reito screams, "Why is this so? There is no reason for her to become his enemy." Iris says that unfortunately it will happen. The thing is that the king's first wife, the queen, will give birth to a boy in 2 years. Then Reito will lose his right to the throne as the only heir. When that day comes, the king will surely give her the order to make Reito disappear from this world. Reito feels completely dark and alone. Later, he sits on a chair at the table and continues to drift in thought. He just can't believe that Aaliyah is a murderer. But Iris has no reason to lie to him. He wonders what now. What should he do now? At this rate, he has no choice but to count the days until his death. Then he tells himself to calm down. After all, she is not going to kill him right now. If he wants to survive, he needs to leave this mansion. The only question is how to do it. Then he remembers and says that perhaps the journey through the forest will be safer if he takes the barrier stone and the decaying stone from the fence. He begins to get angry and wonder what he did to deserve this fate. He tells himself to calm down again and thinks that it was to be expected, being born into a miserable profession, and that it was a miracle that he was able to live all these years in peace. He tells himself to use his head. There is still time. He definitely won't let them kill him that easily. He goes out at night. He has a small cloak. He uses his shape-shifting skill on the bars. The bars are bent, and he can now pass through. Now he can bend the bars with his skill, and he has learned and trained enough skills to fight demonic beasts. So tonight he plans to explore the forest to prepare an escape route. He moves away from the house, looks back. First he illuminated his way with help, and then he removed it. He uses his night vision, which allows him to see his surroundings, even in the dark of night. Next he uses silent steps, which allows him to reduce the sound of the user's footsteps, then stealth, which allows the user to hide their presence. He goes further and says that now he really wants to get the skill of finding presence. He says, okay. He also jumps with the help of skill. It helps him jump further and higher. He lands quietly. He thinks how ironic it is. Who would have thought that the jumping skill he learned to escape from Alaya could be used in such a way? He suddenly slips. Ho manages to react and uses an ice block. He exhales and thinks that it was close. He looks around and sees a monster. He wonders if it's a goblin. He's got a stick. Reito stands on a tree branch and thinks that it's great that he has the opportunity to experience a real battle, and it's time to try out his new weapon. He reaches out his hand, using the ice block along with his unique alchemist skill. He will create a weapon that suits him perfectly. An ice sword appears in his hands. He jumps right at the goblin before he notices him. He uses the helmet splitter. The goblin manages to raise his stick and defend himself, but the sword cuts the goblin down with ease, and he dies. Reito winces at the sight, breathing heavily and wondering if it was a demonic beast to think that such a creature actually exists in this world. He wipes the sweat from his face. He looks at his hand holding the sword and thinks that there is still an unpleasant feeling crawling through his hands. But fortunately, it does not interfere with swinging the sword. Suddenly, he hears some sounds and immediately prepares to defend himself. Several goblins emerge from the bushes. Reito is scared at first. Are there really 3 more goblins? They shout at him in their own language and surround him. Reito remembers Iris's words that if he encounters danger, he should run away immediately, and if he feels like things are getting out of control, he should call her immediately. He asks out loud, it seems like he can't escape without a fight. He remembers what Iris told him. He holds out his empty hand, thinking that if he can't defeat these pathetic goblins, then how will he ever escape from this damned mansion? He appears with a second identical sword and declares that he will definitely survive by fighting the unfair fate with his own hands. Reito keeps telling himself that this is just another battle, so he must prepare for his first real battle with monsters. He realizes that if he wants to survive, he must do this. A goblin attacks from behind. Reito jumps, landing right under the other's nose. He hits him with his swords and he dies immediately. The remaining 2 say something again in their own language. Reito turns sharply and throws his sword straight in their direction. With this sword, he hits the goblin right on the head. The second goblin looks at this in horror. One falls. Reito thinks sadly for a moment that this is also a skill he learned together with Aaliyah. While he was thinking, the third goblin jumped on him. He immediately uses physical enhancement and kicks the goblin flying at him in the stomach. He jumps back and growls at him. Reito quickly summons fireballs and then wind pressure, after which this flaming spear is directed at this goblin. He burns and dies. Reito hides from the fire with his forearms. He sees the fire, breathes heavily, and says he did it. He falls back and exhales, saying that he actually beat them. He sees the system window and says that it seems like he has leveled up, and he has also gained skill points. He notices something and wonders what kind of storage magic he has. It is a magic that allows you to store things in another dimension. However, storing liquids, gases, or living creatures is impossible. Its weight limit is 50 kilograms. He starts to figure out what he needs to do first. A black hole appears from above. He says that something actually appeared there. First, he tries to place this stone there. The system window shows that there is now a pebble there, the most ordinary stone. He says that it is now clear to him, so the list of what is placed in the storage is also displayed. He says that to get it, you have to reach out. He takes the stone back and says that it is interesting in that this storage magic is a very convenient thing. He calls Iris, who appears and immediately says that it looks like his first battle went smoothly. He says that he is now much more confident in his fighting skills. Iris says that it's still 2 years before he can get out of the mansion, so she asks him to try to become stronger. Reito sighs and says that that should be enough for the first day and that he will continue tomorrow night. In the morning he wakes up during class, he yawns loudly. Aaliyah looks at him suspiciously and questioningly. At night, Reito is hunting monsters again, and he chases a horned rabbit. He shouts that even though it looks cute, unfortunately he can't let it go. While running, he stumbles, falls, but gives another push with his foot, after which he accelerates and quickly catches up with the rabbit. He swings his sword and hits it, saying that it's excellent, but then he falls and hits a tree. A system window opens in front of him. It notifies him that the special skill of fast walking has been learned. He is happy that he has acquired a new skill. He figures he has the horned rabbit to thank for that. He takes the rabbit and uses his butchering skill. He takes a separate horn and says that if he remembers correctly, the crushed horn is an ingredient and a cure for exhaustion. Reito thinks it would be better to hide it for now. Suddenly, he takes out a frying pan and says that he chooses it. They say it is dangerous to make fires in forests, but that is exactly what he does. He cooks the meat and says that there is a skill that he wants to acquire at all costs, so he is willing to take the risk. In addition, according to the adventurers, the meat of the horned rabbit is very tasty, so he takes a bite and says how delicious it is. He finishes eating and thanks for the food, saying it was very tasty. Then he remembers that he forgot about the skill and just ate it. He doesn't know how he can get the cooking skill now. He sighs and says that he'll probably have to try again. Suddenly he hears something and another monster pounces on him. He jumps to the side and sees a multitude of kobolds licking their paws. Reito thinks that it seems like starting a fire was actually a bad idea. He gets scared. Kobolds are usually higher level than goblins, which means he needs to get out of here. Reito uses his fireballs. They hit the monsters, they start to burn. Reito says that this is great and that this is his chance. However, kobolds easily emerge from the fire unharmed. He is surprised that his fireballs had no effect on them at all. Perhaps he didn't have enough strength. In that case, he decides to use the ice sword. But then one monster grabs the sword with its mouth and breaks it into pieces. He is horrified, the kobolds surround him. He says in fear that this cannot be, his sword was just destroyed. One kobold throws his claws at him, he moves away. Reito says that since it has come to this, he will simply use the flaming spear. The kobold attacks again, he dodges, attacks a second time, he runs away again. It uses wind pressure, the kobolds first lose their bearings. Reito runs away. They don't give him a chance to use fusion magic. All his strength is spent just maintaining distance between them. If only his fireballs were stronger. Suddenly he remembers something. He has that professional skill. He uses magical enhancement. He says that the firepower should be enough to kill them. He fires fireballs at them again, but with a magical boost. The kobolds get injured and Reito is happy and says that it's wonderful. However, the next moment the kobold kicks in with its paw. Reito flies far away, wondering if that wasn't enough to kill them all. He is horrified as he sees several kobolds jumping and aiming at him. He wonders if this is the end. Several kobolds jump on him, and Shirosaki Reito decides to bet everything on this fireball. It uses wind pressure, after which all kobolds die. The system notifies that the special skill Flaming Bullet has been learned. Shirosaki Reito opens his eyes and sees the notification and says that it was terribly powerful. Who would have thought that basic magic with the help of magic enhancement could become so powerful? The next day, one of the servants says that the young master said he wasn't feeling well, so he's resting in his room. Alia says excitedly that she understands and that she's worried. He was acting strange yesterday too. The other one suggests that they just let him rest today. Shirosaki Reito is outside again, training hard to summon a wind blade. He is happy and says that it is wonderful. Everything is as he expected. Shirosaki Reito says that the wind pressure actually evolved into a wind blade under the influence of magical enhancement. Now it will have more attack capabilities. He sees a list of basic magic skills. He says that means now only the earth block is left. He wonders what skill it will evolve into. He thinks that perhaps something that allows him to create a deep hole in the ground. He shouts a spell of magical enhancement. Then he touches the ground with his palms and summons a lump of earth. Suddenly, his hands begin to sink into the solid earth. He suddenly steps back and screams in shock. Is it really his hands that are being sucked in? He suspects that this magic increases the force of gravity in his palms. He clenches his fist and thinks that if that's really the case, then using all his strength from the start would probably be a bad idea. He suggests trying it easier first. He hits the tree and his hand goes through the hollows. He pulls his hand back and doesn't understand what's happening. The system notifies that the punch has been studied by him. He wonders if he studied it because of this punch. He clenches his fist and says that's great. He figures it's time to try out the beefed-up version of the earth block. Without holding back, he throws his fist and breaks the tree completely. The system notifies that a heavy blow has been learned. He is happy that he has acquired another skill. He decides that he will train it too. He punches the huge rock, causing a heavy impact over and over again. With each blow, cracks appear on the huge rock. He steps back and says that it's not like that you need to be more. He doesn't finish the sentence and decides to take another shot, betting on him. After this blow, the huge stone breaks into pieces. He stops, breathing heavily. The system notifies him that the special cannon strike skill has been learned. He is surprised and happy at the same time. He says that it's great, he got another skill. As soon as he raises his hand, he screams in pain and then immediately uses the recovery boost. He exhales and says, so this is what it feels like to have sore muscles, to think that he will damage his body too. He thinks that he needs to train even more if he wants to learn all the martial arts skills. Then he thinks, shouldn't he be a support mage? A few days later he is training. Aaliyah shouts at him to speed up the pace. He shouts as he runs that he knows everything. His life changed especially after he learned those new skills. And the biggest change was that Aaliyah agreed to train him in martial arts. He begged her to do it. She said it was for his own good. She explained that the young master was a mage, so no matter how hard he tried to imitate martial arts professions, he would never reach their level. She told him that this was why he had no reason to force himself and learn any martial arts skills. Shirosaki Reito then asks if it wouldn't be better to train his body so that he won't get sick so often in the future. She starts to agree, saying that he's right. Then she sighs tiredly and says that she understands, and then she will train him the way she knows how. Shirosaki Reito thanks her. Shirosaki Reito is jogging, thinking who would have thought it would be so difficult. Aaliyah tells him that she will make him run first to train the lower half of his body, so he has to run 100 laps around the mansion every single day. Shirosaki Reito tells her that he understands her. Aaliyah hands him the weights and suggests that they train his muscles at the same time, so she asks him to constantly wear these weights on his arms and legs. Shirosaki Reito picks them up and says they are quite heavy. He agrees and says he did it. Aaliyah adds that, finally, he should not forget about practical training, so that he will have a training fight with her every day after his classes. He, already with a trembling voice, agrees and asks what about her work. She answers that her main occupation is to help the young master in everything she can. She yells at him while he runs, makes him eat food he doesn't like, and makes him fight with her. He throws a punch. She dodges and counters with her foot. He defends himself with his forearms, but still flies far away. Aaliyah says that it's great and that's enough for today. Laying on the ground, Shirosaki Reito says that their training these past few days has been a lot of fun for him. He thanks her, Aaliyah says with a smile that they will have another training session tomorrow, so let him wait for her. Shirosaki Reito looks at her with bitterness and thinks that for some reason now, it doesn't seem at all that they will have to go their separate ways very soon. Aaliyah shouts at him, suggesting that they return to the mansion. He obeys, gets up and runs after her. 6 months had passed since their training began, and during that time he had somehow miraculously learned 2 more special skills. Now 10 years after his rebirth, the day that will change his life forever is getting closer and closer. The servants of the mansion are preparing in a panic, asking if all the ingredients for the banquet have arrived. Someone orders more decorations to be brought. Shirosaki Reito's mother suggests that the butler should mark out different colors here, and he suggests more options. Someone expresses hope that he will really like the gift this year. Someone asks, that is, it will be tomorrow, the young master's 10th birthday. At this time, Shirosaki Reito is sitting at the table and writing with a pen. He finishes and says that this is excellent, just right. He wonders if it's good enough. He calls Iris, she shows up, and after reading his letter, she says it's okay. After discussing it with Iris many times, they decided that in order to escape from this mansion, he should fake his own death. He will leave his last will, shape-shifting to recreate his skeletal structure from the bones of monsters and place the result in an incinerator behind the mansion, then light a fire in it. To think that he would have to write down his last will to stay alive. He says that besides, he has already collected everything he needs for the escape, so he believes that they will pull it all off tonight. Iris says that's absolutely true. After all, his father had already decided to get rid of him. Moreover, she is sure that the order to kill him will be issued tomorrow on his birthday. So it may sound a little unexpected, but it would be better for him to leave the mansion today. Shirosaki Reito sadly says that she is right. Iris sees this and tells him not to worry. She will definitely take him to a safe place after the escape. He remembers something, looks at the box and thinks that he should return this. What his mother gave him. He wonders what is inside. He picks up a fork and figures it wouldn't hurt to look inside. He uses his shape-shifting skill and makes a key out of the fork. It opens. Shirosaki Reito is happy and says that it is wonderful. He sees a diamond-shaped crystal. He asks what it is. Iris says that this is a stone of sacred light, a stone that only members of the royal family of the kingdom of Baltros are allowed to possess. It must have been given to Ayla as a bride price when she married the king, his father. She says that Shirosaki Reito was exiled, so he shouldn't have been allowed to have it. But she thinks that Isla still wants him to have proof of being a royal. Shirosaki Reito begins to feel sad that his mother gave him such a priceless thing. He wipes away his tears, puts it back, closes the box, mentally thanking and asking for forgiveness from his mother. He sees the potion and wonders if Ollie is actually going to kill him. He quickly shakes his head. He tells himself not to dare think about it. If he meets her now, he will surely start to hesitate, which is why he decided to run away without even meeting her one last time. He stands up and says that this is his last day in this mansion, so it probably won't be a big deal if he takes a last walk around it using stealth. He walks through the corridors, watches the cooks, goes to the roof, looks at his mother and the butler. He sees his mother and smiles bitterly. He sees the vault door open and sees Alia's back. He hears her say that the order to kill the target has been received and that she is proceeding with the mission. Shirosaki Reito is horrified by what he heard. He remembers the other Alia and wonders if this is the real Alia. He closes his mouth and immediately runs to his room, throws on his cloak and jumps out the window, calling Iris. Iris says that's bad. Who would have thought that they would make their move before his birthday? She asks him for forgiveness even though she can't see the future with Shirosaki Reito clearly enough. It seems like she was too optimistic. Shirosaki Reito says that they will leave it for later. He asks where he should run now. Iris says that for now, Alia shouldn't know that they know her secret. She is sure that she will most likely understand everything once she enters his room. So she advises him to just get out of this place as quickly as possible. Shirosaki Reito shouts that he understood her. He lands, uses body boosts, and then quick-step. He jumps over the fence and stops on a tree branch. He uses far vision and then observer. He sees a sad Alia looking out of the window. He thinks that she seems to genuinely care about him. But he is horrified and takes back his words from what he sees. Alia stands by the window with a knife and looks for him with a predatory gaze. Shirosaki Reito gets even more scared and starts running even further. He keeps remembering her image as a good friend. Tears flow from his eyes. He doesn't understand why this happened. He asks with tears why everything has to be like this. He mentally asks to tell Alia why it is like this. He wanted to believe in her until the very end and stay with her forever. But unfortunately, now Shirosaki Reito's cries of regret are only shaking the heavens in vain. Shirosaki Reito ran away from home alone into the dark forest. He sits by a tree and wonders if Alia is hunting him. Iris replies that most likely not. Iris says they know he ran into the woods. It must have caused quite a stir by now. Iris says sadly that's how it is. Alia has already told him the truth. Now he is in the forest and will be able to escape if they pursue him. He looks up and asks what he should do now. Iris replies that whatever happens, she suggests they find shelter for the night. It will take 3 or 4 days to get out of this forest. He stands up and says he understands her, then thanks her. He remembers something, opens his bag, and takes out a potion. He pours this stuff on himself. If he uses this, the chances of encountering monsters will decrease. He says that it looks like it's going to rain soon, so he needs to hurry. He walks in the rain, sighs, and says how strong he is. He sees a shelter and says that this is where he will hide. He places his hands on the rock and uses his shape-shifting skill to make a small cave. He sits down and says that he created the cave with ease. Alchemy skills are, of course, a very convenient thing. He notices something. A light animal approaches him. Shirosaki Reito is surprised and thinks that it is a wolf. The wolf approaches him quietly and then splashes, drying itself by shaking. All the water splashes on Shirosaki Reito. He looks in surprise and sees this smiling wolf barking. Then he starts licking him. Shirosaki Reito laughs and says that he is so friendly and not scary at all. He calls Iris and asks what they should do. She says it's the great white wolf. She reveals that he was the son of the Lord of the Forest and had lived alone since his parents were killed by monsters. He is not cautious at all because he does not show hostility. Shirosaki Reito asks about hostility. She answers that, in general, all the creatures in this forest, except for hostile creatures, are one big family. Weak creatures are forced to unite and coexist in order to be able to fight back. It seems that because this baby lost his parents, he was raised by elves. Shirosaki Reito sadly says that even in the forest of monsters, the elves tried their best. Iris says that even so, the elves disappeared from the forest. They actually lived nearby. Shirosaki Reito asks if there is even one house left there. Iris replies that it's not really a house, but rather a converted cave. Shirosaki Reito says that it must be better there than here, and suggests that she take a look. He strokes the wolf's head, looks outside and says that it doesn't seem to be raining that hard and goes out. He looks back and sees the wolf following him. He comes to a waterfall and says that it is here. The wolf is the first to jump and enter the waterfall. Shirosaki Reito is surprised. He follows the animal and thinks that this is how the entrance was behind the waterfall. The wolf comes in, turns the corner, followed by Shirosaki Reito, and they end up in some kind of room with furniture. Shirosaki Reito says in surprise that elves actually lived here. The wolf raises his head, pointing at the lantern. Shirosaki Reito lights a candle in the lantern, sits on the bed, and says that it is not so dusty here. They must not have lived here that long ago. He smiles and says that he likes it. It would be nice to make this cave his base. The wolf barks at this. He brings him some kind of bowl and puts it on the ground. Shirosaki Reito asks if this is a bowl for food. The wolf barks happily. Shirosaki Reito pats his head and asks him with a smile if he is hungry. He uses his storage and says that he has something wonderful. He puts dried meat on his bowl, and the wolf starts eating with pleasure, wagging his tail. Shirosaki Reito thinks he is remembering his dog from his past life. He strokes his head again and says that he, like Shirosaki Reito, is lonely. He says that being alone is very sad. He remembers Aaliyah and his mother and realizes that he really can't go back. He starts to cry and then asks the wolf if he will stay with him. The wolf understands and starts to rub his head against Shirosaki Reito. Then he barks happily. Shirosaki Reito laughs and says that then it is decided. He remembers his previous dog and decides to name him the same. He names him Uru and says that from this day on his name will be Uru. The wolf barks questioningly. Shirosaki Reito looks outside and says that the rain has stopped. He suggests using this opportunity to get him breakfast. He happily tells the wolf that he now relies on him, and the wolf himself happily accepts this and barks at him. While hunting, a wolf chases a boar, while Shirosaki Reito sits in a tree and prepares an arrow from a bow. Just as the wolf has its teeth on the boar, Shirosaki Reito shoots an arrow and hits the boar right in the face, piercing it through and through. Shirosaki Reito comes down and says that it's great. He hugs Oro and says that he did well. The boar hunt was a success. He takes out a knife and says that he will cut up the carcass, so he will guard him. The wolf agrees with him. It's been 2 years since he's been living here. If you're wondering why he's still living in the forest, the reason is this. According to Iris, as soon as he escaped from that place, he was labeled a criminal. He was accused of treason. There was a large reward on his head, and it looked like they had already hung a poster of him all over the kingdom of Baltros. Even now, after 2 whole years have passed, they have not yet lifted the bounty on his head, and so he has no choice but to continue living here in the forest. He butchers the boar and says it's right, taking a piece, and decides to leave the rest as food for the other monsters. They leave. Shirosaki Reito says that today they will have a casserole of wild boar meat. As soon as they return, they will immediately start cooking. Uru barks happily. They go to their house and cook food. While Uru enjoys the fresh meat, Shirosaki Reito shouts that his dish is ready. He starts eating, and after the first spoonful, he says that cooking skills are very useful. Then he says dreamily that if they had miso, he would make miso soup with pork. He keeps thinking, I wonder if he can make miso soup with this skill. He sees a silhouette walking at the entrance of the cave. He doesn't understand what it is. He immediately arms himself. He feels the presence of some creature. Apparently his observer skill worked. He has a feeling that there is a monster there. The monster's footsteps into the room. It's a goblin with a lot of fruits walking towards him. Shirosaki Reito comes out and recognizes him. He awkwardly says, why is he so unexpected? He scared him. Goblin hands him the fruits. Shirosaki Reito takes them and says that today they have Riko fruit and Min fruit then. Shirosaki Reito asks him to wait and then gives him a huge piece of today's meat. The goblin nods his head very happily. Shirosaki Reito says that this time it is boar meat. The goblin raises his hands with the meat in happiness and continues to make joyful sounds. Shirosaki Reito hopes that he understands. He had met this goblin a year ago. That day he and Uru had gone hunting with the desire to get some orc meat. They saw that an orc was attacking a goblin. Since their goal was to get the orc's meat, they killed it, which ended up saving the goblin's life. The next day, this goblin showed up with some fruit in his hands. He handed them the fruit. Then Shirosaki Reito asked Uru if he should take it. He barked approvingly. Shirosaki Reito takes it and thanks him. But the goblin immediately runs away from him, dumping all the fruits on him. After that, he often came with different fruits and vegetables in his hands. He appeared out of nowhere and held out a mountain of fruits. Shirosaki Reito then wondered what he should do about this. All they do is take, and that's bad. If he were bad, Ura would sense it. Then Shirosaki Reito handed him a piece of meat and said that he was giving it to him, even though it was leftover. The goblin glowed with happiness. So she started giving him fruits and he gave him meat. It looked like they were making an exchange. The goblin is always very happy and immediately runs away. Shirosaki Reito suddenly realizes that he has never met a single goblin in the area except him. He wonders what this could be connected with, and on top of that, he only asks for fruits and vegetables. He thinks that when the orc attacked him, he was alone too. Maybe he got lost and is leading a lonely life. Perhaps he does this only to get the meat of those monsters that he is unable to hunt. Shirosaki Reito says out loud that maybe he's as lonely as he is. Uru barks. Shirosaki Reito turns around and asks if he's awake, worried about him. The next day, Shirosaki Reito shoots an arrow at a horned rabbit, and it dies. Shirosaki Reito rejoices and shouts that this time their prey is a horned rabbit. They walk. He happily says that they will have a feast again today. Suddenly, Uro stops and sniffs something. Shirosaki Reito asks what happened. Uro starts growling aggressively. As soon as they enter their hideout, they see that the cave is destroyed. Shirosaki Reito asks who it is. Uru continues to growl. He starts searching and finds a fruit. He thinks that before going hunting, all the fruits from yesterday were eaten. Does this mean that these are new fruits and they were brought by a goblin? He suspects it at first, but then he looks up and sees huge claw marks on the walls. He thinks that judging by them, it can be assumed that a monster of enormous size left it. He lowers his hand and sees blood. He thinks that this can't be. Is this really his blood? Here, Uru barks sharply. Shirosaki Reito asks if he has really found the trail of the monster that caused the mess here. Uru barks affirmatively. Shirosaki Reito immediately uses the skills of strengthening and fast legs. He runs along with the wolf and reaches the tree. The wolf stops and continues to growl. Shirosaki Reito asks if he is there. The wolf continues to growl and bark menacingly at the tree. Suddenly, huge black claws appear from the hollow of a tree. Shirosaki Reito wonders what kind of monster this is. A huge black bear several times bigger than them comes out from there. Shirosaki Reito is speechless when he sees such a gigantic monster. He immediately calls Iris. She says that it is a blood bear, otherwise known as a red bear, and it is level 3. Shirosaki Reito asks if monsters have levels too. Iris explains that monsters have 5 levels in terms of danger, and the third is the middle level. Unless he is a high-ranking adventurer, it will be very difficult for him to compete with it. Shirosaki Reito repeats that he is level 3. Iris says that means he must be very strong. She says that this bear is the most disadvantageous opponent for them, but he has a chance to kill him if he strikes first. Shirosaki Reito asks if she is serious. Here the bear growls at them. Shirosaki Reito says that he is in trouble. This is an unexpected encounter with a terrifying enemy, a fight for survival with a deadly enemy in the forest. The bear growls angrily and then strikes with its huge paw. Shirosaki Reito and the wolf fly back. Their blow does not hit. The bear stands on its hind legs and growls even more. Shirosaki Reito says that it was an incredibly monstrous blow. It was to be expected from a level 5 monster. He takes an arrow and quickly shoots it at the bear, who simply breaks the arrow with a wave of his paw. Shirosaki Reito thinks that normal weapons don't work, so he can't avoid this battle. The bear runs towards him. Shirosaki Reito thinks that he only needs to use this magic like that time. He raises his palm and summons fireballs. He turns them into a fiery spear and sends it into action. He covers himself with his paws and growls. Out of greater anger, he strikes towards Shirosaki Reito, who jumps back and avoids the blow. Shirosaki Reito lands and says that it was dangerous. However, he confidently and stoically says that he will not give up so easily. He drops to one knee, places his palms on the ground, and conjures a burial mound. The bear seems to be sucked down, as if in a swamp. Shirosaki Reito says that if the fire spear is no problem for him, then how could he do it with a stronger fire power? He summons a large fireball above himself, raising his palms up. He launches an attack at the bear while it is in the ground, sitting stuck. The bear burns with screams. Shirosaki Reito wipes his sweat and says they spent too much mana. Uru starts barking excitedly. Shirosaki Reito turns around and sees another bear attacking him. He thinks for a second that this means there was another one. The bear hits Shirosaki Reito, who flies back and hits his body against a tree, after which he falls face down. The bear approaches him and growls even more aggressively than the first one. Shirosaki Reito barely rises and does not know what to do. Then Uru runs up, pushes Shirosaki Reito from his place and gets hit by the bear himself, groaning in pain. Shirosaki Reito calls Iris. She says that the situation is clearly not the best. They should be careful, because she is not able to see his future. Since he had already used up a lot of mana on the magic combo, it was dangerous to continue using it. Shirosaki Reito asks her how she will order him to fight then. She asks how about defeating him with the skill he is best at, which is swordsmanship, of course. His sword will not be a normal one. Shirosaki Reito wonders what other unusual sword this is. Then he remembers something, runs to Uru and starts to heal him with enhanced recovery. The wolf groans in pain. Shirosaki Reito tells him to hold on. Uru's wound gradually heals. Then he stands up completely unharmed. Shirosaki Reito turns to the bear and thinks that he needs to concentrate his magical power to create this unusual sword. Shirosaki Reito speaks to Ura, first asking for forgiveness, however he has a request. Ura confidently barks, agreeing to his request. Shirosaki Reito asks if he could distract him by running around while he delivers the finishing blow. He asks if he can handle it. He barks confidently and gets down to business. Shirosaki Reito thinks that Uru's speed should be enough to dodge his attacks. Uru starts running around the bear, who chases him and tries to strike him. Shirosaki Reito concentrates and thinks that he only needs to imagine a sword with greater power and a significant size. A huge ice sword appears in his hands. He gives a command to Uru, who runs away from the bear towards him. The bear approaches them. Shirosaki Reito swings his sword and causes a whirlwind that hits the bear and cuts off its paw. Shirosaki Reito shouts at him that it's the end because his armor. Then the bear swings his other paw. Shirosaki Reito didn't anticipate this. Uru intervenes. The blow falls on him again. He falls down without strength. The bear swings at Shirosaki Reito again. Then a goblin comes out of the bushes and jumps on the bear, stopping him. The goblin sank his teeth into the bear. Shirosaki Reito is surprised that the goblin is protecting them. The bear growls loudly and grabs the goblin in his paw. Shirosaki Reito asks to wait and that he will help now. However, the goblin takes his last breaths. He was simply crushed by the bear's paw. The goblin makes its last sounds. Shirosaki Reito's eyes widen in horror. Blood comes out of the goblin's mouth. The bear turns to Shirosaki Reito. Shirosaki Reito's eyes are filled with tears and he is overcome with rage. He runs up and swings his sword, hitting the bear straight on. The bear loses its balance. Shirosaki Reito summons another sword into his hand, jumps on the bear and strikes it repeatedly without stopping in a fit of rage. Oro runs up to him, bites his clothes, and pulls him away from the bear. Shirosaki Reito stands up, catches his breath. He turns to Uru, the swords fall from his hands. He begins to hug Uru. The wolf's eyes are sad. Warok starts licking his face. Shirosaki Reito thanks him. Shirosaki Reito and Orok approach the goblin's corpse and sit down. Shirosaki Reito puts his hand on him and says that he saved them, and apparently he saved their home too. Ura rubs his head against Shirosaki Reito. Shirosaki Reito takes off his cloak, covers the goblin, and lifts his body. Images of him cheerfully carrying fruit to them pop into his head. Shirosaki Reito breaks down and starts crying, asking for his forgiveness, blaming himself for this and that he died because of him. The wolf walks next to him in complete silence. In the forest, Shirosaki Reito trains using spinning. The sword falls from his hand because his hand hurts. He breathes heavily, looks at his palm, and says that he is still not strong enough to use his skills with a large sword. Uru approaches him with a horned rabbit in his mouth. Shirosaki Reito approaches him and says that he caught the prey and that it is impressive. He turns around and sees a cross made of wooden sticks. This is some kind of monument to a goblin buried near a tree. Shirosaki Reito purses his lips and says that in order to become stronger, he must eat a lot and gain strength. Shirosaki Reito has lived in the forest for 4 years. Shirosaki Reito is riding on top of a wolf with him. A boar is flying towards them. The wolf leaps high above its prey. Shirosaki Reito swings his sword using Skull Splitter. He kills a huge boar with one blow. Shirosaki Reito lands and breathes loudly, holding a large sword behind him. Shirosaki Reito turns to Uru and says that it is great, allowing him to eat half of the boar. Uru barks happily. Shirosaki Reito pets him and says that he's grown a lot too. Now Uru is twice as tall as Shirosaki Reito himself. While Uru enjoys lunch, Shirosaki Reito cuts up the meat and suggests making a meat hot pot today. He notices something in the meat and takes out a small crystal, not understanding what it is. He immediately calls Iris. Iris says it's called a magic stone. He doesn't understand and asks again. She explains that a magic stone is a gemstone that contains the magical energy of a certain element, and magicians use these stones to enhance their magical power. There are only a few places where you can find these magical stones, like volcanoes with fire magic, lakes and oceans with water magic, and so on. Shirosaki Reito asks why he would end up inside a wild boar, and she says that it's not that uncommon. She says that after all, magic stones are the favorite food of most monsters. Shirosaki Reito is surprised and asks if they eat them. Iris explains that they don't eat the stones, but rather absorb the magical energy stored in them, and large monsters can use them to enhance their abilities, just like mages. Shirosaki Reito says that he understands and thanks her. At this point, Iris abruptly asks him to wait because she has good news for him. He asks. Iris says that there is no longer a reward for his head, and that he is finally free. Shirosaki Reito asks if this is true. Iris says that it seems like the kingdom has declared him dead, since he hasn't been found for 4 years. Shirosaki Reito thinks that now they can finally go down to the village. But then he says out loud that he has no money. Iris asks why he doesn't just visit the nearest village and sell the materials from the monsters and the wild herbs he collected. Since he has the skill to mix ingredients, why doesn't he make a healing potion or something like that? Shirosaki Reito thinks about it, repeats her words and says that he understands. He starts to speak worriedly, turning towards the wolf. She immediately tells him not to worry because he can take Oro with him. She says that if he puts a collar on him, he will seem like a normal dog. Shirosaki Reito is surprised and asks if she is serious. Shirosaki Reito says that he shouldn't abandon him and he feels relieved. He exclaims that this is great. He suggests that they then prepare to go to the village. He puts all the items back into his storage, cleans up his cave, collects all the things and looks around, stopping at the exit. They approach the goblin's grave, bow with prayers, and then he says they are leaving. He saddles Uru and they race toward the village. They come out into a clear, open field. Shirosaki Reito happily says that they actually came out of the forest. Uru stops a little. Shirosaki Reito says that Iris said that there is a village somewhere around here. He suggests that Uru go there first. He listens to him. They approach the village gate. Shirosaki Reito says that here she is. They go in together. There are almost no people. Shirosaki Reito says that the village is completely destroyed. Iris was right. This village was destroyed by a squad of goblins. He passes by the dead and says that they left the corpses untouched. Uru whines. Shirosaki Reito winces, saying how strong the smell of death is. He leaves Uru outside and tells her to keep her eyes open and be careful. He goes into some room. He digs through the drawers, takes out clothes, tries them on, and says the size fits him perfectly and the design is the same as what he wore before. He thinks it was a fashion trend. He used his sewing skill to mend the clothes he wore. But after 4 years, it's no surprise that they are too small and tattered. Now that he can go out in public, he still needs clothes, so this is perfect. He looks at the family picture and says in his mind that he is a little sorry, but he needs to take something. Now that he has new clothes, maybe new cutlery will come in handy. At that moment, he hears shouts from the street that it is a magical beast. He wonders if there is a voice there. He goes out and sees men saying to look at a magical beast. It looks like a white wolf. Another says that it is the first time he has seen such a rare monster. Uro starts growling loudly at them. The man says that whatever it is, he orders them to just kill him and refresh him, because he will bring them a lot of money. Uro starts growling louder, then Shirosaki Reito intervenes and yells to wait. Shirosaki Reito hugs Uro and asks him to calm down, shocking the others. They wonder what it is. Whether this peasant really survived, they tell him that it is a magical beast, and if he gets too close, Ikaru starts whining pitifully. Shirosaki Reito pets and comforts him, saying that he must have been scared. He barks pitifully. People are speechless. They ask if he really tamed the beast. Some don't believe him and ask if he's joking. Shirosaki Reito looks at the man and realizes who it is because he sees the adventurer badge that Iris was talking about. Shirosaki Reito mentally suggests that they get out of here before they get into trouble. He pulls Uru along with him, suggesting that they leave. But he is asked to wait. They ask him if he is from this village. He firmly answers that no, not at all, and that he was just passing by. The people remain awkwardly in place. The adventurer asks if this wolf is really his contractor beast. He doesn't understand what he's talking about, so he immediately calls Iris. She happily asks to let her explain. A contractor beast is a creature that has been tamed by a magical contract using a special spell. Thus, since he is a support mage, he cannot learn such contract spells. Shirosaki Reito thanks her. Shirosaki Reito says that this guy, that is, the wolf, is his family. The girl opens her mouth in shock. The adventurer says that it is impossible for a monster not bound by a contract to be so friendly with a human. Uru starts growling at them again. They immediately get scared and move away. Shirosaki Reito pets him and tells him to relax. The wolf whines pitifully at him. Shirosaki Reito says that he thinks they're done here then. He's asked to wait again, this time by an adventurer. He asks if he means to say that he and this wolf aren't bound by contract. Shirosaki Reito confidently says that he told them that they were a family, and the faces of the three of them break into a satisfied smile. They take out their weapons. The adventurer says that if that's the case, then he doesn't see a problem in taking this wolf from him. The guy says the materials are from the white wolf. Does he know they are quite rare, so let him give it to them. Shirosaki Reito calmly takes out his arrows. The adventurer says to just look at this tattered bow and arrow. He says that Shirosaki Reito is a poor man who can't even afford a normal weapon. It's the first time he sees a guy with such a tattered homemade weapon on his back. The girl says that he also looks weak. The boy says that if he gives them the wolf quietly and peacefully, she will spare his life. Shirosaki Reito says what an interesting development. Behind him, Oro continues to whine pitifully. Shirosaki Reito calls Iris and asks her if she thinks he can defeat those adventurer guys. Iris says that they are not really adventurers at all. They are just a family of bandits pretending to be adventurers. So he'll deal with them without much trouble. Shirosaki Reito asks, "What about those badges?" Iris says that they simply stole them. In fact, there is even a reward for her father's head. If she catches him and hands him over to the royal family, he will receive the reward. Shirosaki Reito immediately thinks about it and then throws the arrow to the ground. They are surprised and say that it seems like he has given up. Shirosaki Reito stretches his hand forward and summons a fireball. They don't understand what it is. What kind of fake elementary level magic is this? They say he can't, but then falls silent when they see dozens of fireballs behind him. They scream in fear. Huge explosions occur. They are all hit, and everything around is smoking. Father stands up and says that it should have been elementary level magic. Shirosaki Reito says that he is quite strong. He attacks him in anger, but then Aru comes out to him and slams him into the ground with one of his paws. Shirosaki Reito hugs Aru and says that it's a great job. He says that these guys really weren't any trouble. Shirosaki Reito asks how he can drag this guy. At this time, some knights from afar tell the Majesty that there is smoke coming from that village. She asks if it wasn't completely abandoned. The soldiers say that there might still be survivors there then. This beautiful girl with dark hair orders everyone to move forward. In the village, Shirosaki Reito is carrying the 3 bandits on a chariot. Shirosaki Reito says that now they can take them all to the city. They are happy that they found a carriage. Shirosaki Reito tells Uru that she looks quite heavy. He asks if he can handle it. He barks affirmatively. Iris says that there is a fairly large city north of here, and that he can hand over the bandits there. Shirosaki Reito says that's what Iris said, so he suggests that Uru get out of here. They hear some sounds and turn towards the gate. Shirosaki Reito says that it sounds just like horses. That girl and the knights rush past him. Shirosaki Reito doesn't understand what it is. Then the girl tells him not to move. Shirosaki Reito turns around. The girl asks what he is doing here and why these people are tied up. She points her sword at him. Shirosaki Reito freezes in surprise and continues to stare at her. The girl tells him to hurry up and answer her questions. Depending on his answers, they might arrest him. The knights' swords are pointed at him. Shirosaki Reito doesn't understand what's going on, so he immediately calls Iris. Iris tells him that these are the Knights of the Valkyrie, one of the knightly orders of the kingdom of Baltros, and the girl in front of him is the first princess of the kingdom. She is the eldest of the previous king's 3 daughters, meaning she is Shirosaki Reito's cousin. Shirosaki Reito wonders if she is his cousin. Iris says her name is Now, but people call her Princess General. Shirosaki Reito says that he heard a little about her after reincarnating, but he never thought he would meet her in a place like this. He asks what a member of the royal family is doing in this village. Iris says that she told him that the village was attacked by goblins, but that the village had barrier stones and bait stones to repel the demons. Shirosaki Reito says that it's like the mansion he lived in. Iris says that's true. Monsters usually wouldn't go near this place, but for some reason, goblins attacked the village. That's why the Valkyrie Knights came here to investigate what happened. And the royal capital is not that far from here. Shirosaki Reito understands now, says that she is right, and it is strange. Then he remembers that she asked him what he is doing here. He asks Iris what he should say. Iris says that she thinks he should be honest and say that he caught the bandits, but he should pretend to be a peasant who was left behind. Shirosaki Reito says that's great, but can he tell them his real name after all? He was wanted until recently. Iris says that won't be a problem. In fact, the wanted poster only showed a sketch of him as a child, and the reward amount, his name was never mentioned. As a member of the royal family without a normal profession, his birth was a well-guarded secret of the kingdom. Even the daughters of the previous king were not informed of his existence. Shirosaki Reito replies that he understands. Iris adds that since there are no surviving villagers to disprove his alibi, the knights will not know that he is lying. She tells them to call her again if there is a problem. She disappears. Shirosaki Reito tells Now that he is from this village and his name is Shirosaki Reito. Now asks if he is the only surviving resident of this village. He says yes, and that a few days ago his village was attacked by a squad of goblins and he miraculously managed to escape. He adds that he had nowhere to go, so he was forced to return to this village. The princess listens and says that it is fine, but she asks, pointing to the cart, what about these tied-up boys? Shirosaki Reito says that they were bandits and that they were trying to steal something from the village, so he had to stop them. She thinks. A soldier comes up to him and whispers something. Shirosaki Reito really tenses up. Sweat is pouring down his face. She says he said he was a peasant. She turns and asks then, what kind of wolf is that? Shirosaki Reito starts hugging Uru and tells him that he is his family and that he has been taking care of him since he was a puppy and that he would never attack anyone. Uru makes a pitiful and cute face while whining. The princess sees them hugging and says that she understands, but it is a pretty big wolf. She gets tense and asks that he is the only remaining peasant. How could he survive? He replies that he was wandering through the steppes. She is surprised and asks if monsters really didn't attack him then. Shirosaki Reito says that the wolf protected him. Uru smiles happily at her and barks, sticking out his tongue. Then the princess asks if that big wolf couldn't take care of the goblin troop. Shirosaki Reito gets very tense. She asks him just not to say that he didn't even fight. abandoned the villagers and ran away. Shirosaki Reito tenses up and calls out to Iris, who tells him to explain everything exactly as she told him. Shirosaki Reito starts saying that there is a small cave near this village. When he was a puppy, he kept him in the village. But as he grew up, some people started to be afraid of him, so he had no choice but to keep him in the cave. The soldier approaches the princess and whispers in her ear that there really is a cave in the forest nearby. She says that his story seems to add up. The princess says that then he should at least be able to tell her the name of the village chief. Iris immediately suggests the name of the headman. Shirosaki Reito confidently says that the headman's name was Ro. The princess asks the soldier if this is true. He nods. She asks him one more thing. How he managed to catch the three. Did he use his wolf? Shirosaki Reito says no, and he used magic to defeat them. She asks if he is a magician. He awkwardly says that he is a mage, even if only a support mage. The princess furiously asks if he really thinks she is that stupid. Shirosaki Reito makes excuses in a panic. The princess screams that there is no way in hell that a support mage could catch these bandits. Shirosaki Reito panics that she suddenly got so angry. She yells that she might have misheard him, so she will ask him again how he caught those bandits. She asks instead of magic he used that wolf. He mumbles again, talking about magic. She shouts louder, not to make her laugh, because a support mage can't use attack magic, or he wants to say that his second profession is a different type of mage. Shirosaki Reito remembers and calmly says with his hand raised that he is also an alchemist. She shouts at him not to joke. Are they both miserable professions? Shirosaki Reito looks around and thinks that it is true, in this world only his profession matters. But still, an overreaction to unsuccessful professions. He completely forgot about this prejudice. He tries to explain that even a support mage can use magic. He may not be able to use burst magic, but he is capable of basic magic. The princess says that of course she knows about it. But what good is everyday magic? Shirosaki Reito says that everyday magic can actually be used offensively if he can prove to them if they will finally trust him. The princess smiles and agrees to the condition. She points and says to try to show it on that barrel. Shirosaki Reito calls Iris and asks how much magic he will have to use, which they believed him. She tells him not to use anything too fancy or it will be suspicious. About 10 fireballs will be enough to convince them. He says he understands and creates these fireballs behind his back. The soldiers are surprised that there are so many fireballs at once, it's ridiculous. The princess asks what's wrong if that's all he can do. She is interrupted by Shirosaki Reito, who says that he's starting. He directs fireballs towards the barrel, causing it to fall apart, surprising the princess. The soldiers shout that this is amazing, incredible. Is this really the original magic? The soldier tells the princess that it looks like this guy is telling the truth, and she irritably replies that she already realized that. She says that it is true that with the level of magic he showed, capturing bandits of that caliber would be easy. She tells him with embarrassment that she is sorry for doubting him. He awkwardly begins to say that if she believes him. She sternly says that she now believes that he is from this village. That is why she needs to ask him for a favor. She asks him to help them in the investigation. Shirosaki Reito freezes in bewilderment. Shirosaki Reito asks for help with the investigation, then adds that there's nothing he can do that would help. She says that all he has to do is tell her what exactly happened in the village. He awkwardly says that he will tell. Then Iris comes out and thinks that it is her turn. She asks him to listen to her carefully and answer her properly. A few days ago, a group of goblins attacked the village. They were different from the normal goblins. They appeared after they destroyed the decay stones and barrier that were placed around the village before the attack. The stone of decay emits a scent that monsters hate, and the stone of barrier creates a barrier that protects against physical attacks. Both are useful in repelling monsters, but each has its own weaknesses. Monsters can approach the decay stones if they can somehow block the smell, while the guardian must activate the barrier stones directly. The goblins, having invaded the village, acted as if they knew about these weaknesses. And in order to prevent the guards from using the barrier stones, they shot them with bows and then broke into the village. The goblins were armed like humans and behaved like a well-organized army. Shirosaki Reito tells the princess all this and says, "This is what happened in this village." He sadly says that he too fought with all his might, but in the end he couldn't save anyone and Uru saved him. Noah says he can't believe it. They got rid of the magic stones. Goblins are simply not capable of such intelligent behavior. The soldier tells her that there are still corpses of villagers in the village. Goblins don't like human flesh, and if there are any other intelligent monsters here, their corpses would have already been completely eaten, but there would be teeth marks or some other traces left. The princess turns her head sadly and says that she knows that. She asks if there were any other special features about these goblins. She asks to let her know if anything comes to mind. Shirosaki Reito begins to doubt when it comes to special features. He thinks to himself that he hasn't actually seen them. Iris asks him to describe it this way. Some goblins were the size of orcs. The princess repeats the words about size and asks if these were really goblin knights. She thinks about it and says that if the party was led by goblin knights, that would definitely explain the goblins' behavior. Shirosaki Reito himself does not understand what kind of goblin knights these are. Iris suggests that they are a more advanced subspecies of goblins, roughly speaking, an evolved version of a regular goblin. The princess says that now she understands what happened here. Well, anyway, she asks what he is going to do now. If he has nowhere to go, she can offer him shelter. He awkwardly waves his hands in front of him and says that everything is fine. He hugs Yura and says that he is going to go with his wolf to another city after all. He is the only one left from his family. The princess says that it is true and apologizes for reminding him of it. Shirosaki Reito at this time thinks that they definitely cannot go to the capital of the kingdom with her. She says that if you think about it, he showed them some impressive magic. So why shouldn't he try being an adventurer? Shirosaki Reito doesn't understand what she means by this. The soldier tells the princess that it's a bit off as she signs the document. Noah says that with the resources of his worthless profession, it will be difficult to survive in such an occupation, so whether he survives will depend on him. She hands him a document and a pouch. She says it's his bounty hunter reward and identification. They'll help him when he gets to the city. He sees this and thanks her. Uru also rejoices with him. The soldier tells the princess that the investigation of what happened in the village is complete. He offers to return to the capital. Noah agrees. She calls Shirosaki Reito with her. They offer to escort him to the nearest town. She shouts to her soldiers to put him on his horse. Shirosaki Reito says that everything is fine, and that he can just mount his wolf. He saddles Uru. Noya says in surprise that she understands. She looks at everyone and says that it looks like everyone is ready to go. She shouts to everyone that they are moving out. On the way, Shirosaki Reito thinks that if you look closely, it looks like the entire squad is made up of girls, and they are all so young. He asks one of them for forgiveness and if she can spare him a minute, but she answers him in an inhuman way. Shirosaki Reito looks and notices the ears and tail. She must be a beastman. He asks why there are no men in the squad. She easily answers that it is because the princess hates them. Shirosaki Reito is surprised and asks again if she really hates men. He says that it didn't seem that way to him at all. Another girl tells him that this was the first time in her life that their princess treated a man so well. Shirosaki Reito doesn't understand what's good about it. She says that the princess is the kind of woman who favors strength and talent. She says that maybe the princess saw potential in him. Shirosaki Reito says calmly that's how it turned out. That beastman girl asks if it's not because of the amazing magic he showed them that she would like to learn it too. Another girl tells her that she can't use magic and she howls at her indignantly. Shirosaki Reito says that now he understands why there are no men in their squad. But why there are so many young people in it? They tell him that many of their troop are both skilled in weapons and talented in magic. Magic is strongest in the teens to 30s, which is why their troop consists only of young men. That girl says she can't use magic, but she was confident in her sword skills, so she applied to be a knight and was accepted. They stop abruptly. They scream that it is a monster. Shirosaki Reito does not understand what is happening. What is this noise? A huge worm crawls in front of them. Shirosaki Reito immediately asks Iris what it is. She explains that this monster is called a sandworm, although they are usually harmless to humans. Moreover, they help to increase the fertility of the soil and are very popular with farmers. They will not attack unless provoked. Shirosaki Reito says, "What a relief," with a sigh. However, according to Iris, they are very unsightly to look at, so most women don't like sandworms. She advises him to never kill one. If he is not careful, his corpse will emit pheromones that will attract more worms. She told him to be careful. Shirosaki Reito doesn't understand. Didn't she just say something alarming? Here the command is given for everyone to form up an attack formation. Shirosaki Reito does not understand if they are really going to fight. He yells that this is bad, and the face should be told not to fight. He yells at Princess now not to harm this monster. If they kill it, it will attract more. He stops abruptly, seeing the princess in a strange state. She swings her sword and haltingly tells him not to worry, because a royal knight would never lose his composure. The other girls tell her that it's enough for her not to force herself. Shirosaki Reito asks if the princess isn't acting a little strange, and they tell him that of course, after all, the princess has a fear of insects. She tells how when the princess was a child, she was seriously injured by a bug-like monster, and since then, she's been afraid to fight them. As far as he can see, she is completely unable to attack. Shirosaki Reito doesn't understand how she can tell him such a thing with such a stone face. The girls tell Now to stand still and that they will deal with the sandworm themselves. She says that everything is fine and that she will fight this monster herself. She stands with her hand outstretched with a sword. The worm approaches and only rubs its head against her. The princess faints in shock. They tell her to hold on. The girls start getting angry at how dare he hurt the princess. Then Shirosaki Reito yells at everyone to wait a minute as he said, if they kill him, more worms will appear, so they shouldn't kill him. The girls start to get angry at how he dared to harm the princess. They are ready to attack, their swords raised. Shirosaki Reito keeps trying to tell them not to fight the monster. He knows it's bad. If they try to kill the worm, its pheromones will attract even more. He imagines numerous worms and says with disgust that it would be a picture straight from hell. Shirosaki Reito realizes that the princess is still unconscious, so they need to stop them somehow. He calls Iris and asks what he should do. She says that sandworms like to eat monster flesh. If you feed them, they become more docile. Shirosaki Reito says he understands and gives Uru the command to move forward. He rushes past the girls and shouts for everyone to go back. Iru jumps and stands right in front of them, with his back to the monster. They shout at him. What is he doing? This is dangerous. Shirosaki Reito looks at him, takes out a piece of flesh from his storage. The monster immediately reacts to this. Shirosaki Reito stands with his hand outstretched. The monster sniffs first, makes a sound. Shirosaki Reito tenses up a lot. The monster snatches the flesh from his hands and eats it. He swallows everything, making different sounds. Shirosaki Reito looks at this in surprise. The girls don't understand what just happened. Then the princess wakes up. She quietly opens her eyes and asks to report the state of affairs. She sees the monster lovingly rubbing its head against Shirosaki Reito, who is not happy about it. Shirosaki Reito says he's glad he liked it, even though it was a little disgusting. He wipes the monster's drool off his face. The monster burrows into the ground. Shirosaki Reito says that it is returning to its underground. He watches it. The princess calls him and asks if he is okay. He replies that everything is fine and that sandworms are completely harmless to people. The princess breathes a sigh of relief. Suddenly, this monster comes out of the ground and spits something out at them, then burrows back in again. Shirosaki Reito sits down and looks. The princess asks if this is the barrier stone. It is a large stone and drool in front of them. Shirosaki Reito believes that this is in gratitude for the meat. He says that it is covered in digestive juices, but he will take it. The princess looks at all this with disgust. She exhales. Shirosaki Reito turns to her. She apologizes for panicking, if possible. She asks him to keep what she saw a secret. Shirosaki Reito says that he understands everything. She sighs with relief and says that she has had problems with insects for as long as she can remember, especially the disgusting ones. She just can't stand them. Then she stops herself and asks what she's talking about and scratches her head awkwardly. The soldiers tell her that they should move on. Shirosaki Reito thinks that she seemed very stern to him at first, but it seems that she has a kind heart. He wonders if she feels so close to her because of blood relationship. On the way, he asks Princess Now if she really has a swordswoman profession. She replies that no, her professions are a knight and a fighter. She immediately warns that if he calls her a musclehead, she will kill him. Shirosaki Reito asks if there is a difference between a knight and a swordsman. She replies that there is. It is said that among professions, a knight's rank is higher than a swordsman's. But in reality, there is no way to determine which profession is better, even if they are both related to the sword. Each of them has their own strengths and weaknesses. Shirosaki Reito asks if all members of the order have the knight profession. She replies that no. And to learn swordsmanship, it is not necessary to have a sword-related profession, but it requires a lot of effort and dedication. Shirosaki Reito says that he knows this well. He remembers training with Aaliyah, sadly says that he, in the end, only has worthless professions. Now thinks at the fact that she told him about her weaknesses. She thinks that he is definitely weird. Shirosaki Reito says that he sees something up ahead. Now says that they have already arrived and that it is just in time. She says that, like she said in the village, if he is interested in becoming an adventurer, then why not give it a try? Shirosaki Reito still doesn't understand. Now says that adventurers throughout history have made their name there. Before them, a view of the adventure city of Luno opens up. This is the first city in Shirosaki Reito's life. Now the door of adventure opens. They say goodbye. Shirosaki Reito thanks them for seeing them off. The princess says that there is no need to worry, after all, he has helped them with many things too. Now says that now she can report to her father properly. Shirosaki Reito asks, what is this? Why to her father? She says that she just did it that way. She then sternly tells him not to lose the ID she gave him. No matter where he wants to work, he will need it. She adds that besides, he is definitely talented. With such strength and intelligence, even with his worthless professions, he will fit in well with adventurers. She extends her hand to him. He happily thanks her. The princess asks them both to take care of themselves. Shirosaki Reito shakes her hand and thanks her again for her help, while in the background a joyful Uro quietly howls positively. Now saddles the horse and bids them farewell, after which everyone leaves. At this time, other soldiers stand behind Shirosaki Reito and say, wasn't that the Order of Valkyrie? They wonder how this boy is connected to them. Shirosaki Reito hands him a piece of paper and says that he would like to pass. The soldier reads it and says that it is from the royal family. They both bow to him now, asking forgiveness for his rudeness, so that he can go inside the city beyond the gates. They walk further, they ask him to take care of himself. Shirosaki Reito looks at them in surprise, and then is even more surprised when he sees people inside. He stops at the entrance with his mouth open. He sees many people, trade, busy people. He says that he has never seen so many people in one place before. Then someone turns their attention again, shouting to the others, isn't that a white wolf? They say, can you be serious? It's impossible for this little guy to tame him. Another says his fur is beautiful. I wonder how much it could be sold for. Shirosaki Reito thinks, as expected. Uru singles out. He decides that he needs to quickly find a hotel. One of the stall holders shouts at him about some horned rabbit kebabs. Another with a crate asks if he'd like some smoked orc meat for his dog. Another woman in a dress asks him, calling him a sweet boy, if he would like to let his sister take care of him. He shyly declines, thanking her. They move on. He becomes wary because his presence detection skill just worked. He realizes that someone is following them. He calls Iris. She says that's right. He is being followed. Their target is probably Uru if he wants to deal with them. She has a plan. She tells him to turn there, then he will see a suitable open space. They turn around and find themselves in a large open space. Shirosaki Reito says that this place should be suitable for a battle. He saw and realized that there were two of them. One tells him that he seems to have excellent instincts, calls him a baby and orders him to quickly give them this white wolf. At this point, Shirosaki Reito senses another presence. He turns and asks the man on the roof if he is with them too. This man says he doesn't care about him and his dog. His target is those guys. Those two realize it's bad and decide to get out of here. They scream that it's the Reaper of the world. As they run away, their necks bleed as if they were hit by a bullet. Shirosaki Reito turns around and sees that the two are dead. The man comes down. It's a woman with blonde hair. She says that she said that he had no business with him. But now that he saw her at work, he thinks he should take care of him too. She throws some kind of bag into the ground. Shirosaki Reito immediately tells Oro to run. This bag causes smoke and fog. Shirosaki Reito calls Iris. She says that the bag contained a powerful sleeping powder. She wants to deal with him when he passes out. Inhaling even a small amount will make him unconscious for half a day. The smoke disappears. Shirosaki Reito doesn't know where to go. That woman with the knife appears from behind. She swings it. Shirosaki Reito manages to duck and avoid the blow. He jumps back and lands back. She recognizes the movements and asks if he is a killer too. Shirosaki Reito replies that it can be said that the killer raised him. If she wants to fight, then he will too. He conjures an ice sword. She is surprised by the appearance of a sword made of ice, and asks if it is true that he is a magician. Uro appears behind the woman and growls, wanting to attack, but she only kicks him and tells him to get lost. Shirosaki Reito gets angry and attacks the woman, who dodges the blows and says that she won't hit her that way. She jumps on top of him and asks him if he's never really fought anyone. He yells, "So what?" He stops abruptly as the woman disappears from the field. The woman comes down from above and kicks him. He flies back to the wall. The woman laughs and says what a funny guy he is. After he pulled out those big swords, she wondered how strong he was. She says that it turns out that before this, he had only fought monsters. Even newbie adventurers wield a sword better than him. Shirosaki Reito thinks that she is right. He has fought monsters many times, but he has almost no experience fighting people. He can't believe that she sees right through him. She even easily repelled Uro's attack. He understands that she is strong. Her first profession must be an assassin, and her second is either a fighter or a swordsman. He goes on the attack with Uru, thinking that even so, he can't let her defeat him. He creates a hurricane with his sword. She easily dodges and uses several knives. The knives pass by Shirosaki Reito. The woman smiles and says he's caught. There are strings attached to her fingers. The knives are now pointing back at Shirosaki Reito. He immediately reacts and knocks them out with his knife. As soon as the knives fly in the other direction, the threads begin to squeeze the woman's fingers until they bleed, and she clicks her tongue in pain. Shirosaki Reito seizes the moment and says that she has opened up. He summons an ice sword and prepares to attack. The woman says that the size of the sword does not matter. If it does not hit the target, then it is useless. Shirosaki Reito says that's why he'll hit her. He uses a spin. The woman first says that such an attack does no harm, but her weapons fly off. She says that it's impossible. Then Shirosaki Reito immediately strikes a second time and screams, just like that. The woman falls. Shirosaki Reito catches his breath. He tells Iris that she was truly strong. Iris says that it was dangerous and that there was a big bounty on the woman's head. She couldn't tell him about it earlier because he ran away unexpectedly. Shirosaki Reito says that she could have told him anyway. Shirosaki Reito thinks that he still has little experience in fighting people. Fighting people and fighting monsters are completely different things. Iris says that to overcome this weakness, he should properly take up sword training, but first he needs to go to the Adventurers Guild and register. She offers him this reward. Shirosaki Reito says that this is the guild that Iris was talking about. He looks at the building and wonders if it isn't rather run down. He walks into the guild, holding this woman on one shoulder. Someone immediately tells him that they don't sell things like that here. Someone in the room assumes that there is a reward for her head. Shirosaki Reito approaches the worker, apologizes, and says that he has caught a wanted criminal and wants to collect the reward. She looks and screams that this can't be. It's Mira, a wanted criminal of rank A. She asks him if he caught her. He replies that he did. People in the hall start to gather. They ask what she said, if this is really the famous beheader. They scream how this guy could do such a thing. They don't believe it, and ask if it's really Mira. Shirosaki Reito says that he actually just found her unconscious in an alley and found out. He decides to just make something up. He says that after that, his wolf friend didn't let her escape. She says how lucky he is. She congratulates him and hands him 15 gold coins as a reward. He thanks her. Someone from the audience says that he is lucky. They tell him that he won't have such luck again. They ask him to buy them something to drink. Someone else says that it is not proper for adventurers to use civilian clothes. Shirosaki Reito apologizes to her again and says that he wants to become an adventurer. He asks if he can register here. The worker says of course he can. She asks if he has his ID with him. She hands over a document from Now and says that he was told that this document would suffice. She asks to see it. As soon as she starts reading, her eyes widen and she says, "This can't be. This is from the royal family." She asks him for forgiveness and asks him to wait. She will step away for a second. She calls the guildmaster. A large and very tall girl comes out of the door. She asks what all the noise is about. Shirosaki Reito is surprised. Shirosaki Reito thinks to himself that she is so huge. This guildmaster asks menacingly what is going on here. The worker asks her to look at it. She says this guy got the signature of the royal family. She asks if she has the skill to judge if it is real. She says it is real. That's why she called her for advice. The guildmaster reads carefully and thinks. She says it's hard to imagine that same man-hater princess would do something like that for a guy. She reads that he is an excellent user of elementary magic. She smiles and asks if it is interesting how he uses magic. Shirosaki Reito asks if he can register as an adventurer now. The worker turns to him. She asks the headmistress what they should do since the princess herself recommended him. Should they exempt him from the exam? But she snaps that such a thing would never happen. She sternly tells him that no matter how many recommendations he gets, rules are rules, so he will have to take the test. She's also curious about how exactly he fights with entry-level magic. She calls him rudely, causing Shirosaki Reito to flinch, and tells him that if he wants to become an adventurer, then he should follow her because the exam is starting right now. Shirosaki Reito is shocked by this. The worker says that they still haven't received the exam fee. She briefly says that they will deal with it later. She opens the door. Shirosaki Reito follows her, looking around. He wonders what kind of place this is. The guildmaster calls him, saying that the training grounds are further away. They arrive at an empty room that looks like a ring. She finally introduces herself, says that she is the local guildmaster Ball, and orders him to get in there now. He obeys and then asks what they will do. Bale raises his sword and says that they will conduct a practical exam. She adds that, although she has no intention of doing anything, he is free to attack her until the sand on the clock runs out completely. She says that the damage he deals will be used to determine his adventurer rank. She adds that there are no restrictions on the use of weapons or magic. He will always defend himself. Shirosaki Reito wants to say that she can do that. Bal rudely interrupts him, shouting that it's too early for him to worry about her. The only thing she can't do is attack. She can still move, so we shouldn't think about it. He excitedly replies that he understood her. He immediately uses physical enhancement and summons his ice sword. Bal says he uses strange magic. She is surprised by his sword made of ice. She turns over the sand clock. Shirosaki Reito immediately attacks. He attacks her with a sword. She defends herself with her sword. Shirosaki Reito swings again. She asks what kind of movements these are, and that he can't even be called a half-swordsman. Shirosaki Reito steps back. After a short thought, decides to use a whirlwind. She again prepares to reflect the blow. As soon as Shirosaki Reito swings, he uses helmet splitter before bringing his sword down hard on her. Bal dodges the blow. Shirosaki Reito uses a spin. She deflects his blow. At this point during the clinch, Shirosaki Reito decides to let go of the sword. Bal wonders if he let go of the sword. Shirosaki Reito prepares his fist and attacks with it from the other side. Bal manages to react and uses body reinforcement. Not only Shirosaki Reito himself writhes in pain from the blow, but Bal as well. Shirosaki Reito rubs his fist, groans in pain, and asks what kind of skill that was. She also sighs and asks what his fists are made of. She rubs her side and says he gave her a nasty bruise. She asks if he really is a mage. She straightens up and says, whatever, let him attack. She admits that he managed to hit her, but he will have to continue until the time runs out. Shirosaki Reito doesn't understand and asks if the exam isn't over yet. She yells at him. Didn't she tell him from the start that he needs to attack her before the time runs out? After all, his rank will be determined based on the damage he deals to her, so he better take it seriously. She tells him that if he tries hard enough, he can become a high-ranking adventurer from the start. Shirosaki Reito looks at his watch and realizes that it's still half past. He asks he can use magic too. He summons a fireball. This ball grows to enormous sizes. She begins to become wary and asks to wait. He attacks her with a firebomb. She puts the sword in front of her again and asks who he thinks she is. She uses the helmet splitter, which removes the fireball. She says it was quite unexpected. She thinks it's not bad. Shirosaki Reito is surprised that magic can be cut like that. He asks if it is a sword technique. She asks him not to make her laugh. She explains that it's because her greatsword is made of mithril, a weapon made of magical metal that can repel any magic. Shirosaki Reito creates many more fireballs and asks how about this and sends out a scattered volley. Ball spins his sword and reflects all the fireballs away from him. Shirosaki Reito thinks and sends her fiery spears. She says how interesting it is. While she is deflecting all his blows, he comes up to her from behind and prepares to strike from behind. He uses the helmet splitter, but she still deflects the blow and says that it is too naive. He summons a wind blade with his free hand, and she steps away from him. She asks with a smile if he really decided to combine fencing and magic. Shirosaki Reito thinks that this wind blade would finish off even an orc with one blow. He catches his breath and says that she is strong. He is slowly weakening and believes that his magic reserves are already at their limit. Ball says that it seems that he is more exhausted than she is, and what is he going to do now? There is still time left. He swings. Bal wonders if he's still trying to do something. Then she adds that it's good. She even likes them. She tells him to attack. Shirosaki Reito tells her if she could move 3 steps to the left, she doesn't understand, and thinks that she can. Here Shirosaki Reito takes advantage of the all-seeing gaze. He watches and thinks that it's great that the position and distance seem right. He holds the sword tightly and uses a simple spin. Ball doesn't understand and asks why he is spinning. What is the point? She begins to feel the wind itself and that it is accelerating. Shirosaki Reito spins more and more, causing power. She uses her charged blade and stops Shirosaki Reito's rotation with her sword, causing the sword to shatter into pieces. He falls backwards, but Ball herself notices that there is now a crack in its place, and not a small one. She says she can't believe he was able to damage her weapon. She adds that he is good. He barely breathes and demands the exam results from her. She says that he passed, and that after that no one would do something stupid like refuse him. She laughs and says that she also attacked in the heat of the moment. So as compensation she will waive his exam fee. Shirosaki Reito lies down and says that he passed. Iris asks her if he is sure that everything is okay. If he wants to live a normal life, then he needs a C or D rank. Adventurers of rank B and above are often the subject of rumors. He thinks he did well, but he wonders what rank he will be given. She congratulates him and says that from today he is an adventurer of the F rank. He does not understand and asks again. Reito expresses disappointment about the F rank. Ball questions him, realizing he is not happy. She says she would have given him a B rank after all, he was able to injure her, but she is worried about his swordsmanship. She asks if it is true that he fought mainly monsters. He answers affirmatively and realizes that he's been told the same thing before, remembering that Mira. Belle says that, as she thought, if he thinks that adventurers only fight monsters, then he is wrong. Catching thieves, escorting nobles, and guarding the city instead of soldiers are also part of the job. She acknowledges his strength, but he is not used to fighting other people, so she can't easily give him a high rank. Reito says that he understands her. Bal shows her sword with a crack, and says that she has used this weapon since the beginning of her adventurer career, but in reality it is imperfect. Reito doesn't understand her and asks her again. She says that it emphasizes the strength and size of the sword, but at the cost of sharpness. She says that in reality, it is too heavy for a normal swordsman to fight, so only giants can handle it besides her. Reito is surprised to hear about giants. He asks if he is really that heavy. She hands him the sword and asks if he wants to try holding it. He takes it and is horrified. The sword instantly falls from his hands. He screams that it is heavy. Bal picks up the sword and says that it is true and that it is not a sword that a normal person could handle, but to think that her sturdy weapon is now all cracked. She says with a smile that that last attack was incredible. Reito awkwardly thanks her. Reito wonders how she can handle such a huge sword so easily. If she fought him seriously, he would have been easily defeated. At this time, Ball is also thinking that he can't believe that she used the charged blade attack that she abandoned when she stopped being an adventurer. She thinks to herself that it seems like a worthy successor has appeared. He is still a beginner in swordsmanship, but he has potential. She thinks that he is like a diamond in the rough. She checks his name. His name is Reito. She asks who taught him how to use a sword. He says an assassin, and then she takes it back and says a servant from his house. She doesn't understand and asks, Servant or killer? Which one? Reito thinks hard, not knowing what to answer. Reito finally says that it's a long story, and he mainly learned it himself. He smiles awkwardly at her. Ball starts to think, so that's why his blade movements are so unusual. She instantly realized that he has little experience in fighting people, but his skills are certainly great for fighting monsters. She smiles and thinks that this is very interesting. It'll be great to teach him the charge blade attack. She asks if he remembers the attack she used at the end of the exam. Reito looks at her. He apologizes and says that he was so focused on his own that he doesn't remember it very well. Ball says that he swung his sword quite a bit, and then she herself replies that it was a loaded blade. Reito asks if this is a combat technique. She replies that it is absolutely true, although she is probably the only person who can do it. He is surprised and asks why. She says that this technique is often used by two-handed sword users from the giant clan. Few people use a two-handed sword at all, let alone grab a weapon superior to such a large and heavy sword. Reito says that's true, thinking that the weight of his ice sword was changed to make it easier to use. Ball says that even though the giants use a charged blade, it's more like they're swinging their swords with all their might. She wouldn't call it swordsmanship. Reito asks if they do it differently. She says that in her case she doesn't swing it with all her might. She says to watch now because she will swing it with all her might. Reito gets scared and asks what she means. Ball takes it and swings it downwards. However, there is no effect. Reito thinks that it's a bit strange. Bal asks what he thinks. Did he see the difference between the attack in the exam and this demonstration? Reito asks if she just did the swing with just her arms. She says that's absolutely true. She explains that most giants fight like this. They are used to handling swords with just the strength of their arms. She swings her whole body and says that if a normal person tried to do this, their arms would just fall off. So you need to swing using every muscle in your body. Reito takes cover from the blow. Ball says that it is not the strength of his arms that is important in handling a heavy weapon, but how he uses his lower body. His legs and lower back play a crucial role in handling such a sword. She adds, looking at him, that although it seems he has obviously trained a lot in this regard, Reito only remembers his life in the forests and doubts that it can be called training. He scratches his head awkwardly and says that it rather just happened on its own. Ball looks at him with a smile. She says that his spinning skill was incredible, but he couldn't repeat those extravagant moves in every battle. Reito doesn't know what to answer. Ball then suggests why not try learning the charged blade skill. Reito immediately says enthusiastically that he would really like to. She says that it is excellent. She suggests that they start then. She will learn the basics. Reito is surprised and asks, "Really, right now?" The worker congratulates him on passing the exam and informs him that his registration as an F-rank adventurer has been completed. Reito thinks to himself that he has trained that skill so much that he can barely feel his hands. She hands him his guild card and badge. Reito exclaims that this is proof that he is an adventurer, which he confirms and says that badges are mandatory, so she asks him to make sure to wear it. Ball comes and says that as far as she can see, he is registered. Reito asks her how he can take the task. She points to the notice board and tells me to just check the posted requests and tell the administrator when I choose one. She says that as a newbie, he will have to chew his way up with various assignments. He doesn't understand what these assignments are. She says that adventurers are sort of jacks of all trades. If he wants to get a good job, he will have to win the trust of the townspeople first. She wishes him luck. She leaves, Reito stays in place. He reads the board and says that most of these tasks are for D and E ranks and for F rank. He finds one task, takes a piece of paper and reads that he needs to defeat goblins and that this place is nearby. He immediately approaches the worker, apologizes, and says he will take it. She says that it is excellent and asks if he really found a job right away. She asks to see his guild card. He hands it over, she hands it back and says she is confirmed. She wishes him luck and says his doggy is waiting for him outside. Reito thanks her. He comes out and immediately calls Uru, who happily barks at him. Reito shouts that this is their first task. He comes to the same gate and freezes because the task was from the first village he visited. He sadly says that he can't help them any more than Uru howls. Reito sighs and suggests that they should return to the guild and report this. Reito remembers and asks Uru if he likes his new crown. He howls happily and proudly. Reito says that now he will no longer be mistaken for a wild animal. Reito says it was very expensive, but it suits him very well, so it's all good. Uru notices something. Suddenly, Uru gets into a fighting stance and starts howling. Reito doesn't understand what's going on. He looks up and there are some sounds and shouts coming from there. He sees that many other soldiers are shouting to pack up and get out of here. They pass by him and he runs away. Reito still doesn't understand what happened. What's going on? As soon as he raises his head, a huge shadow approaches him. A huge monster foot steps in front of him. A large version of a goblin is holding a beast man in his hand. Reito calls Iris in shock. She immediately reports that this creature is called a troll. They may look like goblins, but they are completely different monsters. Trolls have the physical strength of a blood bear, but they are also intelligent and can use weapons. They are very tough opponents, so Iris tells him to be careful. Reito asks how we should fight him. He hears a cry from the detainee asking for help. Reito suddenly remembers the picture of the bear and his goblin friend. He automatically stretches out his arms and fires ice bullets. They hit the troll in the shoulder and chest, after which it releases its victim. He thanks him. Reito shouts at him to hurry up and run. The troll starts to get angry, gritting his sharp teeth. Reito doesn't want something like this to ever happen again. He shouts at him that he will protect him, and promises to do so. Reito starts to distract the troll. The monster screams. Reito realizes that ice bullets do not cause fatal wounds to the troll. He conjures swords and commands her to go forward. The wolf obeys, and from a distance he uses a hurricane with the help of swords. The troll screams even more and turns around. Reito says that as he thought, a bigger sword is needed because these aren't powerful enough. Someone from behind calls him, asks for forgiveness, and says that they will get out of here, so he will have to take care of this guy. Reito remains in place, confused. He thinks that when some of them are injured, there is nothing to be done. They run away. Reito hopes that everything will be fine with them, no matter what. He needs to defeat this guy. At this time, the troll pulls out ice bullets from himself. The troll screams and runs at Reito. He prepares to attack, but suddenly the troll jumps right in front of him, going around him. He chases after those who decided to run away from them. They do not understand why another one is shouting at him not to come near them. At some point, one of them falls with the wounded man. The troll raises his leg to crush them. Reito rushes towards them, thinking that he needs to make it in time. The troll raises its leg to crush its victims, and Reito rushes towards them from behind on Uru with his sword raised. Once they get close enough, Reito uses a magical boost. They come close. Reito plunges his sword right into his back. He arches and screams in pain. The troll's foot steps on empty ground, causing them to breathe a sigh of relief. Reito thinks that if the skin is too tough to pierce him completely, he will simply shoot cold air from his sword and freeze the troll from the inside. He sends cold into the troll. Cold steam begins to emanate from his body. The monster stands motionless. The ice reaches his face. Reito immediately goes down, but then he is horrified. He looks at his palms and says that it hurts. His palms are frozen too. He says that using magic enhancement while holding a weapon that shoots cold air in front of him is quite dangerous. He uses enhanced recovery for his hands. He turns his head and says that he was able to defeat him, but he doesn't think that any materials can be obtained from his frozen body. Ura barks in agreement. Reito stretches out his hands and, just in case, directs a firebomb at the monster. The monster explodes. Chunks of ice fly off from it. Reito exhales. The beastmen ask with relief if they were saved. One of them thanks him and says that if he hadn't come, they would have died already. She turns to her friend Dashin and says that he should thank him too, because he saved their lives. Dashin apologizes for telling him to take care of the troll and for them running away. Reito says nothing and asks, more importantly, if they are okay. The girl lifts the wounded woman. Her name is Almi. She says that she will help her now. She groans. She takes and pours the liquid on Almi. Reito asks with interest what it is. She replies that this is a healing potion. Even though it is low level, it is capable of healing such wounds. The wound on his face disappears. They remember the other one, Galil. They shout and argue that it is useless because he still hasn't come to his senses. If they don't do something right now. The girl hugs Galil and asks him not to die. Reito comes up and asks if they want. He can use healing magic. The girl asks if he can really heal him. Dashin asks him to do so. Reito comes and starts healing Galil. Galil wakes up. The girl hugs him tightly and cries, saying that he woke up. Dashin thanks Reito. Galil turns to Reito and says that he saved him again. He thanks him. Reito says not to worry about it. He asks if he is okay now. Dashin says that he has lost a lot of blood and that he needs to be taken to the city so that he can rest. However, he wonders what a troll is doing in a place like this. The girl says that they were able to survive, but the adventurers from the Furious Flame Squad were completely destroyed. Reito doesn't understand what this Blazing Flame Squad is and asks. The girl points and asks if he sees that building. He looks in the direction and says that before the attack they were resting in it together with them. Reito thinks to himself that this is the headman's mansion. It is almost completely destroyed. He thinks about all this blood. Dashin says that they will take the wounded back to the city and asks Reito what he is going to do now. Reito replies that he still has things to do, so he'll stay here for now. Dashin says he understands, but tells him to be careful because the monsters might show up again. He introduces himself and says that they are from the adventurer guild Dragonfang. Their squad is called Red Flag. If he ever needs help, they will be happy to help. The girl thanks him again for his help. If he needs anything, she asks him to let them know. They say goodbye. Reito waves at them and tells them to take care of themselves. He says that he is really glad that they defeated the troll without much trouble. In a direct confrontation with him, they would have had problems. The troll was stronger than the Bloodbear. He adds that even using the Eye of the Beholder, he doesn't think they can get anything from his body. He decides to take the head just in case. He has no idea if it's worth anything, but it will prove their victory over the troll. He puts the head in his storage and decides to go into the village. As soon as they enter, Reito covers his nose with his cloak, saying that it is terrible. Due to the poor condition of the bodies, it is difficult to tell, but it appears that this party consisted of 4 adventurers, male and female. He calls Iris, who asks what's going on. He asks what he should do with them. Iris guesses that he's just dead adventurers. She says that if any adventurers die, the right to their property is transferred to the living members, then the remaining members must report their deaths to the guild. In the case of a lone adventurer, the one who finds their corpses must report. After this, the guild becomes the owner of the deceased's belongings, and the discoverer will be duly rewarded. Reito says that since they were completely destroyed, he thinks it's worth taking their adventurer badges for now. She says that in reality, most people just search the bodies of adventurers and take whatever they want before reporting to the guild. Reito is surprised and asks if this is even allowed. She replies that it is a bit complicated, but usually the guild turns a blind eye to such cases. After all, they do not know for sure whether it was a human or a monster who stole the adventurer's things. Reito says that it sounds terrible, but if this is the norm here, Iris asks how about just packing up their things? Hasn't he already used someone else's property in the cave without permission? He looks at her awkwardly. Reito thinks that if he looks at them, the squad of the outstanding tribe consisted of a swordsman, a fighter, a mage, and an axe wielder. And the Red Flag squad had the same job distribution. They were all equipped according to their professions. He wonders if there is anything here he can use. He says that their armor is no good. The troll's attacks damage them, so he decides to just take the weapons. Reito asks for their forgiveness before taking the weapons. He sees the mage's staff with the magic stone, then picks up the sword and asks if it is made of magic metal. Iris says that this sword was forged by the dwarves from Mithril. The blade has been used so much over the years that it is now useless. But the sword's hilt is quite rare, being made from a world tree. Reito does not understand what kind of world tree this is. She explains that it is the name of a huge tree that is said to have existed since the birth of this world. The world tree is located in the elven capital. Its branches are used for various weapons. This material is more resistant to magic and much stronger than most magical metals. He is surprised and answers that he understands. He puts it all in his storage, then notices something. He asks what the crack in the floor is. It's surprisingly big. Come to think of it, it's strange that the troll didn't have a weapon. How come the adventurers couldn't deal with him? Here Uru starts to growl and bark aggressively. Reito doesn't understand and asks him what's going on. He continues to bark. Suddenly another troll comes out from behind. Reito wonders in surprise. Is there really another troll? Reito looks at the troll with fear and says that there is another one. The troll immediately strikes with his weapon. Reito manages to get away from the attack zone, but the place where the monster hit is completely destroyed. Cracks appear. Everything breaks and crumbles. Reito jumps high into the air, summons an ice sword, and aims straight at the troll with a strike. However, he easily deflects his blow with his sword, which is several times larger than Reito's sword. The monster growls and swings from the other side. Reito dodges the blow and lands on the floor. Behind Uru, Reito barks, saying that if things get too dangerous, he'll rely on him. As he was saying this, the crazy and enraged troll attacks him again. Reito manages to tilt his head. He leaves and says that the troll attacks so recklessly, if this continues, he will not be able to get close to him to attack. Uru jumps from behind and bites the troll on the shoulder. The monster turns to him and is distracted. Reito shouts that it's a good job. He speaks his sword and attacks him, but the troll manages to react and put his sword under the attack. The troll presses harder, then Reito decides to use a spinning block, escapes the clinch, and flies up from the side. He pushes off the ground and uses physical boost. He kicks the troll in the back. The troll simply turns to him in confusion. Reito winces in pain and says that it hurts, holding his leg. He adds that the troll does not take damage even when he uses a physical boost. He begins to get a headache, believing he used too much magic on the first troll. If he remembers correctly, trolls, like orcs, are vulnerable to fire. He realizes that he can't waste any more time. He decides to end it with one blow, and then summons and launches a firebomb at the troll. The troll screams in pain, but remains unharmed after the firebomb. Reito understands that one charge won't be enough for him. But this time the troll has taken damage. He just has to attack again. If he attacks from close range, he will definitely defeat him. He comes close to him and throws a firebomb right into his stomach. However, the firebomb just doesn't come out. He is surprised and thinks that this can't be. Did he run out of mana? He thinks again that this simply can't be. Could his mana have run out in a situation like this when the troll swings and attacks him? Uru manages to tug at his clothes and lead him away from the attack site. Reito thanks him and catches his breath. Although his magic is gradually recovering, he can't cast powerful spells right now. He wonders how they can deal with him. Reito calls Iris, who immediately says that he seems to be having problems due to mana depletion. Reito asks what he should do now. She says that he can stall for time, restores magic power, and attack again, although running away is also an option. Reito says he can't just run away and let the troll run wild here. Iris firmly calls his name. She says that since his future is unclear to her, she asks him not to do anything reckless. Reito says he knows it and calls Uru. He sits on Uru and runs around the troll. He and Uru will run like this so that his magic has time to recover. The troll attacks him in irritation, unable to keep up with him. Reito becomes heavy. He grabs his head. Uru notices this and stops abruptly, throwing Reito off of himself. Reito falls onto some bags. Uru himself goes to attack the troll. Reito shouts at him on the spot that this can't be. Uru howls confidently to him. Reito understands that he is trying to buy him time. He watches the fight from behind the bags. Uru jumps on the troll and continues to bite him. Reito understands that he needs to hurry and recover quickly. He still doesn't have nearly enough mana to use Firebomb. Uru can't defeat the troll alone. Something needs to be done. Oro grabs the troll's neck with his teeth. The monster throws Oro aside in rage. The wolf lands on the floor. The troll angrily picks up pieces of earth and throws them towards Uro. The wolf easily dodges. However, the stones fall towards Reito. He closes himself off from them. Uro gets angry and runs up to the monster from the side. Uro attacks the goblin in every possible way. Reito sits with his eyes closed, then opens them with suspicion that it has become quiet. As soon as he says this, Uru crashes into the wall above him and falls next to him. Reito looks on in shock and runs up to him. While he tries to help Uru, the troll slowly approaches them, growls, and continues to look at them angrily. Reito realizes that his anger is making him even more angry. He thinks what to do. His magic has not yet fully recovered, and Uru is wounded. Now it is impossible for him to escape. He thinks he should ask Iris for advice. Uru lies there trembling. Reito runs away to the side, distracting the monster. He thinks that he can't rely on Iris all the time. He needs to become stronger so that he can protect his family. He keeps demanding and asking to think. He needs to think about how he can defeat the troll. The troll takes a swing at him. He wonders how to finish him off without using too much magical power, if only there was a strong technique that would allow him to do so. He remembers using the sword, Ball. She told him that the charge blade was a sword technique. It uses all the muscles in his body to attack with a large sword. Giants can do this with just the strength of their arms, but obviously weak people are not capable of it. She says there's no need to think too much about it. All he has to do is swing the sword with all his might. She adds that he knows the bullet strike. He already used it in the exam. It is a fighter's technique, but the concept itself is close to a charged blade. He spins his body and then attacks. If he is already capable of this, it means he has already learned to attack using all the muscles of his body. She asks him to trust her. He can definitely learn it. However, he should not blindly believe in the charged blade. He can deliver a powerful blow, but if he misses, he will be open to the enemy. Reito remembers all this and goes to the sword. He grabs the sword, poses in front of the troll. With the magic power he has now, this is the best he can come up with. He uses physical enhancement. He holds out his arms and tells himself to use all his muscles. He pushes off and jumps with all his might at the troll. He attacks the troll and cuts it into pieces. He dies. Reito stands in front of him, breathing heavily. He falls sharply. Ruru manages to come and soften the fall. He says with a smile that thanks to him they are saved. The system notifies him that the charge blade skill has been learned. Reito is happy and shouts that it's great. He even stands up from joy, clenches his fists, and smiles. Then he falls again because his whole body hurts. He realized that the loaded blade is dangerous. He is crying from pain and shaking all over. Uro was lying behind him. He destroyed a powerful enemy with the help of his reliable comrade Uru and incredibly powerful combat equipment. He becomes stronger in both body and spirit. Reito groans in pain. He comes to the guild and says that the first request ended in failure. The worker says that since the client is dead, there is nothing to be done. She adds that it is also impossible to say that his work was in vain. She asks if that is not great. He says, looking at his palm, that it speaks the truth. After defeating the troll, he returned to the Black Tiger Guild. After some time, they were visited by the Red Flag Adventurer squad he had helped earlier. They also explained the reason for what had happened. The two trolls that appeared in the village were actually the target of a search by the Red Flag and Raging Flame teams. The two trolls were not wild monsters, but rather were raised by a nobleman. When they grew up, the nobleman no longer wanted to take care of them, and so they were released back into the wild. The two trolls adapted to life in the wild and began to attack many villages, causing great damage. Apparently after this, the adventurer teams of the Dragonfang Guild, Raging Flame, and Red Flag were sent to investigate. While resting in an abandoned village, they were ambushed. The Furious Flame squad was completely wiped out. Dashit says he doesn't know what would have happened to the Red Flag if he hadn't appeared. He gives something to Reito and says it's a gift for helping and healing his comrades. He asks to accept them. Reito sees 5 gold coins in his palm. They say goodbye. Reito thanks them. He says that despite the failure of the request, in the end there were more positive aspects. He sits down and asks Uro if he agrees that it's okay if he relaxes a little. He barks approvingly. He drinks the drink and thinks that living like an ordinary person is just a pleasure. His rest is interrupted by the ball. She says that the failure of his first job is not a reason to lose his enthusiasm. She explains that everyone must go through this path if they choose the path of an adventurer. For further development, various experiences are necessary. Rita looks at her in surprise. Evil Ball leaves, shuffles the sheets, comes back and asks how about this, letting her look at the sheet. She says the danger level is low, which is great for beginners. He takes it and reads, 30 crescent herbs collected, payment 3 silver coins, he thinks. Bal says the payment is fair. She tells him to pick up his feet and go forward. Rito stands up and says that he understood her. Bal says that it happened. Finally, he stood up and went. He approaches the worker and says that he would like to confirm the request. She tells him to show her the requested items in that case. He takes out his items from his storage and says he will do it without problems. In the background stands Ball in shock. The worker says that she confirms that everything is fine, so his payment is silver coins. Rito thanks her. Reito approaches Ball and with shining eyes says that the job is done. Ball angrily swings at him, calling him a brat, asking if she's really asking for a beating. If he had them from the very beginning, then he should have told her about it. He dodges the blow and says he's sorry. Ball tells him if Rito doesn't think he needs to take his problems a little more seriously. Rito says that he thought about it seriously. He had the required items, so all he had to do next was deliver them. And that was no problem at all. Ball starts to say no, but even if it is, Rito interrupts her and says that he has something else planned today, so he needs to leave. He apologizes to her. He leaves. Ball stays there, saying what a strange child he is. At this time, Rito runs down the street with Uru. They come to that empty place. Rito says that there is no one else but them. He takes out a huge sword from his storage. He wants to try the two-handed sword he got after the battle with the trolls. Then, after destroying the troll, he stood up. He says that he is finally able to move as soon as he collects the materials. He decides to head back immediately. He sees the blade of a troll's greatsword and wonders if he can attach it to the hilt of the sword made from the world tree he just harvested. He sits down and says that since neither of them are magical metals, he could use his skill on them. He wonders if the change would work. He places his hands on the sword and says that he should try. The sword reforms and Rito is surprised that they have merged together. He receives a notification from the system that the unique skill connection has been learned. Rito says that he succeeded, even received a new skill. He is glad that he did it. Returning to training, he says that the sword he created back then will now be tested. He decides to see if he remembers correctly. The strongest metal in his world is tungsten carbide. He uses metal transmutation. He looks at his sword, which is almost glowing. He is happy that the color has also changed. Then he decides to try to increase its durability. He uses the matter enhancement. The sword suddenly becomes heavy, and he drops it. He swings it, then says that the weight is not a problem since he can use a skill of great strength. Then after some manipulations he raises his sword and exclaims that his new sword is ready. He says with a smile that he is simply very excited about his new weapon. If he leaves it here, its skill will wear off. He should keep it in storage where time will not have power over it. He goes and says that his hands are itching to hunt monsters. Uro barks in agreement with him. They are walking down the street when they hear some noises around the corner. They approach. Rito says that the noise is coming from the box. He opens the lid and asks if the cat has slipped inside, but he sees a tied-up girl inside. Rito is shocked and doesn't believe that there is a girl in the box in front of him. He screams that this is just brutal, pulls the girl out of there, and removes the blindfold. The girl takes off the bandage on her mouth, greedily gulps air and says that she already thought she was going to die. She thanks him and says it was a close call. She almost got sent away. She smiles widely at him. She thanks him for saving her and introduces herself. Her name is Kotomini. She immediately asks what Rito's name is. He answers by saying his name. The girl asks about the animal's name. Uro barks. Rito calls its name and says that as she sees it, it is a wolf. She approaches him, repeats his name and says with a smile how fluffy he is. Rito stares at her and then suddenly remembers. He asks her how she ended up in the box. She replies that she doesn't know. When she woke up, she was already in the box. Rito thinks to himself, is this really such a kidnapping? It would be bad if the kidnapper came back. He tells her that they should get out of here right now. He goes out to the street, looks back. They go out together, the three of them, as they leave. Two men shout that they see her. They shout at him to stop because she belongs to them. Rito says they've been caught. He pulls her along. They turn into a corner. However, another man comes out and says, calling him a small fry, that he has no shortage of courage to dare to steal their goods. Rito says he's just trying to help the girl. He asks if he knows anything about her. At this time, those two come and shout, did he really expect to leave? Rito thinks that the situation is only getting worse. They are surrounded. The man with the knife says that she will bring them a fortune. They will not let him take her. Reito looks at Uru, then picks up the girl and tells her to hold on to him as tightly as possible. He uses a jump and leaves the place. They wonder if he just took off. Uru runs after them. He jumps very high on the houses. He stops on the roof and says that they probably won't get them here. The girl turns around and says she doubts it. The main man jumps up to them and yells at them to stop, calling them brats. Rito then realizes that this man is a beastman because he has ears and a muzzle. He demands to return it immediately. Rito extends his hand and uses wind pressure towards him. The man throws it far away. He falls on some bench. The people below don't understand what it was. Did some guy just fall from the sky? Reito looks on and suggests that they leave while they can. He honestly admits that he never imagined that they would chase them. The girl says with pride that the lot of a popular girl is not easy. Reito suggests that for safety's sake they should increase their gap, and she happily says that they will walk on air. They leave and stop at the bridge. She says that I will probably be safe here. Kotoman pouts resentfully and says that she wants to fly some more. He laughs awkwardly and thinks that despite what she just went through, he thinks that she is such a strange girl. Reito looks around and says that as soon as you get away from the city center, the river becomes so clear and there are so many fish. Ruru lets out a whimper. Reito asks what is going on. Does he really want to play in the river? Then the girl says that it looks delicious. She jumps and says she's going to go for a swim, leaving Reito confused. She dives into the water. Reito watches in shock as she moves through the water. She does some manipulations with the water and yells at them to hold on. Reito turns around and sees that there is now fish on the floor. The girl says that it is her gratitude. She asks to take them with a smile. Reito takes the fish in his hands and looks at it with disgust. Oru looks at the fish with great appetite. Reito smiles and thanks her. Then Kantomine jumps and ends up back on the bridge, saying that it was a perfect landing. She splashes water on Reito and Uru. He goes to Reito with his hands outstretched and thanks him for helping her, and then kisses him on the cheek. Reito remains in place with red cheeks. The girl kisses Oru, thanking him too. She leaves, and Reito remains in the same position. She jumps into the water and disappears. Reito looks at the water and calls her name. He uses the observer's gaze. Despite using the skill, he realizes that she has completely disappeared. He wonders what kind of swimming speed this is. He keeps wondering who this girl is. He takes the two fish. Later, he calls Iris and asks, in the end, why they wanted to capture Kotomine. Iris, with a red face, asks if it is not wonderful to meet such a nice girl. He awkwardly asks her to stop talking about it and asks to tell him why they tried to catch her. Iris replies that she was kidnapped by criminals who steal human goods. Although she calls them criminals, they are just small-time punks. Ryato asks if he should grab them and throw them into the guild. Iris says no, and that they will leave them with the royal guards since there was no reward. He won't get any money from this. Rita says he understands this, but he still thinks he should track them down. Iris says that there is no need for that because the princess is coming back on stage. Rito asks in surprise if it is now. She says that she came back to look for an important person, according to her prediction, even if he does nothing. Fate has predetermined that these criminals will be captured by the Valkyrie Knights in the near future. Rito says he understands her. She says the clothes are almost dry, so she suggests they go back. He notices a small person in a black cloak. He wonders who it is and how long she has been there. He is horrified that he didn't sense her presence at all. Rappe immediately uses aura camouflage and stealth. He is now invisible. The man uses a teleporter. Spell circles appear on the floor. Rito notices the collection of magic. He says she left. He asks Iris what just happened. She says it was high-ranking magic. She teleported. He says he didn't ask about that. He asked about who she was. Iris thinks about it and says that even if he knew the answer now, he still wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Rito asks her why she says that. She replies that this is because he is a very dangerous opponent, who should not be dealt with unprepared. She suggests leaving everything as is for now. Later, Rito leaves and thinks that Iris's words only confirm the fact that there seem to be many things happening in this city that he can't even imagine. He thinks that he is so curious. He comes to the empty space and says that this is great and that there shouldn't be anyone here. He takes out his sword again. Yesterday was a busy day for him, but today he can use this two-handed sword to check a few things. Then Rito says what he should name this sword, because his other first one is named after the ice sword. Rito happily says that he will name it Iris. At this time, Iris asks him not to do it. Rito says that he is joking. Iris asks if the name of the anti-magic blade would be okay. Rito is scared because they didn't speak directly, but she can hear her voice. He wonders if it was because he called her by her name. Rito smiles and says that they will settle on the anti-magic blade. He thinks that's not bad. He picks up the sword and says that now that they have given it a name, he will use shape-shifting to change its size so that he can carry it on his back. The sword shrinks, and Reito tugged on it and wondered if even changing the size had no effect on the weight. He then says that if a heavy blow can increase the weight of an attack, then maybe he can use this skill to lighten the sword. He uses this skill, but then the system notifies him that the skill Gravity Blade has been learned. He is surprised that he has acquired the skill. He doesn't understand, and says that with this skill, it is possible to control the weight of the sword. It is convenient for him. He decides to test it. He lifts it, uses helmet splitter, whirlwind, rotation, and finally a charged attack. Everything around him smokes and becomes dusty. He exhales and falls back. He says that his swordplay has improved, but it feels like all the juices have been sucked out of him. His magic power is just draining like crazy. He calls Iris and asks if he can ask her something. She asks what's wrong. He says he just wanted to know if he could use skill points to get a skill that would give him more magic power or something. She says she understands and says that it is possible. He is surprised and asks if that is true. Iris tells him to get ready. Iris says it's time for a test. She asks him what skill points are. He immediately tells her they're points you get when you level up, which you can use to buy skills. Iris has changed into her teacher's uniform, so he asks what that outfit is. It shows his current status, where his level is 41 and his experience points are 40. It tells that he reached level 41 after the battle with the trolls. Until now, he had only used his experience points to acquire a unique skill that enhanced magic recovery. Reito asks if she was talking about the skill he acquired when he first leveled up. Reito says that with 40 experience points, he can obtain many skills. Iris says that depending on the skill variation, the amount of experience points required changes. For skills that do not match his profession, the amount of points will be significantly higher. Such is the limitation on the use of experience points. In his case, the skill related to magic that is available to him will initially cost 1 skill point. The second skill will cost 2 points, and the third 3 points, and so on, with each new skill acquired increasing the number of experience points by 1. While the cost of acquiring skills that are not in line with his path is 10 points each, however, this skill cost is fixed. It will not be higher or lower. Reito is surprised when he hears that it costs 10 experience points. Iris adds that he can use experience points to enhance his skills and improve his proficiency. Now she suggests moving on to the main topic. Iris recommends him the skill Magic Power Expansion, as the name says. This skill increases the capacity of his magic power. In addition to having more magic power, which is what he is aiming for, the skill also has a great similarity to enhancing magic recovery. She adds that since it's a unique skill that's always active, there's no need to reach any proficiency level. Reito looks at the system and asks, since it's the second skill he bought, the cost of the experience points is 2, right? He says that he already has 38 experience points left. She says that in addition to that, she offers to learn the skill of increasing magic output. She explains that, as the name suggests, it increases his magic output, both for battle and healing. Reito happily says that they'll take him too. He says that since this is his third skill, he now has 35 points left. He asks what other skills he has. Iris replies that since they use up his experience points anyway, she suggests upgrading the skills he already has. Reito doesn't understand how this will strengthen his skills. Iris says that they will use the experience points to strengthen his unique skills. Then he adds for information that enhancing skills costs 5 points each. Reito starts to think gloomily. Then he says to let everything go. Then there will be a boost. Iris says that his skill level has increased. Unique skills are determined by level, not mastery. Iris says that a higher level skill has better characteristics than a skill with a high mastery level. But at the same time, he only has 20 experience points left. She asks him what he will do next, whether he will learn another skill. Reito says that if he could choose, he would prefer to put more strength into his muscles. He asks her if he can enhance his strength skill. She replies that it is impossible. Experience points can only enhance skills related to his profession. Reito then asks if there is another way to increase his muscle strength. She replies that if he wants, then there's a skill called Strong Arm just for him. This skill is part of the action skill tree, and it has much better stats than strength. Reito asks if this means he can't strengthen a skill unrelated to his job, but he can get a new one. Iris replies that he can if he's willing to use his experience points, but that leaves him with no more than 10 experience points. She asks if that's okay with him. Reito thinks at the moment he has already crossed level 30 and further increase will not be so easy. Maybe he should not spend money on them. Reito says he takes it back. He suggests trying out his new enhanced abilities first. Iris says she understands. Then Reito decides to begin the test right away. He calls for physical strengthening. The sword appears. He is surprised because combined with the gravity blade, the two-handed sword became so light. Next he uses magic, launches ice bullets. His bullets have become much larger than they were before. He looks at it in surprise. The size of these bullets is something else. Not to mention that he no longer feels fatigue from using magic. He thinks that it was worth all the experience points he spent. Now he won't run out of magic power so easily. He has fully charged his magic, so now he needs to increase his physical capabilities. He still has trouble fighting other people. He wonders if he needs someone to teach him how to wield a sword. If he had to choose between someone, he would prefer to be taught by Belle, but she seems to be very busy with her work as a guild master. He ponders, then calls Iris. He asks if there is anyone in this city who can teach him swordsmanship, or any school where he can learn swordsmanship. Iris replies that Ball is pretty much the only person who can teach him how to wield a greatsword. After all, great swords are mostly used by giants, and they use them more like clubs, so she doubts they have any moves he can learn. Reito says that it is clear to him. Iris adds that, however, she has a solution for him. Reito asks if there is really a solution. She advises him to learn to wield a sword by fighting monsters. Reito is indignant. Is it really true that he needs to learn to fight people instead of monsters? Iris says that of course she didn't mean that he should fight every monster that comes his way. Even among monsters there are many who use weapons, just like humans. She says these monsters have mastered the use of weapons. Reito says he gets her point, but he's not sure the monsters would want to teach him even if he asked. Iris tells him that he is not going to go to the monsters and ask for training in the use of weapons. He only needs experience using weapons. If he continues to hunt monsters that wield weapons, then his weapon mastery will grow. She asks. He remembers the goblins from that village. He says he heard that they were goblins armed like Loli, now in her Valkyrie order, as well as the Adventurers Guild, are still busy searching for them. Reito asks Iris if she knows anything about them. She replies that of course she knows. In fact, they are not wild goblins. They are goblins raised by a monster tamer. Reito asks, Monster Tamer is a profession that allows you to team up with monsters. Iris says that, to be more precise, this profession gives access to magic that makes monsters obey. For such purposes, the tamer uses contract magic. As long as the contract is being fulfilled, any monsters can be tamed. Reito says that it means that according to rumors, armed goblins attacked the village under the control of a monster tamer. Iris says that this is absolutely true, moreover. The monster tamer does not act alone, but in a group of 5 people. Reito is surprised and asks, so it's an organization. Why would someone create such an organization? Iris says that it's for the sake of enmity with the kingdom, because the kingdom is the object of hatred for many shadow organizations, especially those from the ancient empire. Their hatred has deep roots. Reito doesn't understand and asks about the ancient empire. Iris says that the ancient empire existed for a long time on the territory of people, even before the emergence of the kingdom of Batuturos, which was founded by his ancestor. Batuturos' empire used military might to control its people. This empire ruled over human territory for a long, long time. The empire waged numerous wars that took a heavy toll on its own people. Unable to bear the oppression any longer, the people rebelled, but all who tried to resist were killed. However, the 13th prince of the empire could not abandon the suffering people, so he founded the kingdom of Barateros. The 13th prince received great support from the people. Even some of the military came under his wing, of course. The emperor was not happy that his own flesh and blood went against him. Because of this, a war began between the kingdom and the empire. In terms of military power, the empire should have won hands down. But the neighboring countries decided that the kingdom would be easier to manipulate and so sided with the kingdom. After the empire was destroyed, the emperor was executed along with his entire family. However, some of his relatives managed to escape execution, and now, hundreds of years later, their descendants still hate the kingdom and plot to restore the empire. They call themselves Imperials. They will resort to any methods to bring the kingdom to ruin. Reito says that the monster tamers use armed goblins to achieve this goal. Iris says that this is true, but the reality is somewhat different. Only a handful of people truly want to restore the ancient empire. They are trying to gather an army of monsters that they have a contract with, but they can only make weak goblins obey them. Reito says that it is still quite dangerous. If he can defeat armed goblins and the monster tamers that control them, his swordsmanship will improve. He asks if he can fight these dangerous people alone. Iris says that of course he can't fight them alone, but that with a plan he can succeed. Luckily, all 5 are in different places. They are being careful and avoiding detection in every possible way. She then says loudly that, however, let them hide as much as they want, no one will be able to hide from her sight. Since they are taking on such a task, she suggests making these tamers disappear, all 5 of them. Reito agrees with less enthusiasm. Iris says that now, while things have turned out this way, they need to prepare well. Reito asks why she is so upset. At this time, far away in the mountains, in a certain shelter, numerous goblins have gathered. A certain man in a cloak with a knife comes to him and spills blood. Reito and Uru approach the mountain. Reito asks if it's there. It looks more like a rocky mountain than a mine. Uru barks. In order to learn how to fight humans, he must defeat the monster tamers. But Iris told him that before going to the monster tamer's lair, he must stock up on a large amount of food, as well as take spices and kitchen utensils with him. Reito says that because of this, the preparation took longer than he expected. He wonders if he'll even need these things. Well, he has storage, so it's no big deal. To the east of the adventurer's town, 2 days' ride by horse, is the Heir mine, a steep rocky mountain where a meteorite fell, and, strangely enough, Mithril was found at the impact site. The kingdom turned the mountain into a mine, but due to the depletion of ore, the mine was abandoned. Now people rarely approach the ruins of the mine since monsters have settled there quite freely. The icing on the cake was the monster tamers belonging to the Imperials, who made the old mine their base and even stationed part of their goblin army there. Reito says that they can run out and attack them at any moment. From that moment he suggests Oro to be more careful. He obeys. In the end, he kills a wild boar. He says that there seem to be no dangerous monsters, and this carcass can serve as good food for Uru. Uru enjoys the food. Reito drinks water and says that they can use the assassin skill so that the monsters don't notice them. Although this way they will destroy the very purpose of coming here. Goblins emerge from the stones. He immediately attacks and says that although they are not that dangerous, it is hard to believe that they still continue to encounter goblins trolls. Even in the forest, there were not so many of them. He straightens up and says that it would probably be a lot easier if he had a team behind him. Then he shakes his head sharply, saying that this won't work. Because this is part of the training, he and Uru will try their best. They find the lair itself. He thinks that they have already gone deep enough. Therefore, the killer skills used are considered appropriate. He uses stealth, presence tracking, presence obscuring. He then decides to increase his mobility with a quick step, and also activates his night vision. He senses footsteps in the presence of goblins. He realizes that there are armed goblins patrolling there. He sees drawings on them and wonders if this is a sign of a contract. Reito wonders, so these goblins belong to a monster tamer, and besides, they look strong. He tells Iris that he is at the lair and awaits her next instructions. Iris says that these monsters will bring him a good amount of points. It seems that the monster tamer himself is a little further away. She happily says that it seems like the monster tamer hasn't noticed them yet, so she suggests that they take care of these guys quickly. Reito is outraged that she makes it sound like it's that easy. Reito nods to Uru, who nods back. He suggests that they first deal with those who separated from the group. He throws knives at them from stones. They hit the goblins right in the head. Uru catches them and brings them to him. Reito warns Uru that he will defeat these 3 simultaneously. His task is to howl as loudly as possible in 10 seconds. Uru obeys. Reito says that he relies on him. Reito jumps and looks down at the goblins. Then Uru starts howling loudly, which disturbs the goblins. At this time, Ray lands behind him and kills 3 with a spin. Then he jumps closer to the other goblins. The goblins attack him. He uses a whirlwind and kills them. Reito wonders if they are forming a formation. They really are unusual goblins. Suddenly, 2 goblins attack him from behind, and Uru saves him by knocking them out of the way. As Reito turns around, another goblin with a weapon comes from in front. Reito reacts and uses Windblade, finally revealing a large armored goblin in front of him. Reito thinks, what dimensions? It must be a goblin knight, and this two-handed sword is made of magical metal. They attack each other at the same time. Reito moves away. The goblin immediately attacks. Reito blocks the blow with his sword. He realizes that this enemy is different from the other armed monsters he has fought before. He doesn't just swing his sword using brute force, he imitates the actions of a swordsman. Reito flies back from the blow. The goblin swings his sword. Reito tenses as he lowers his sword to attack. Reito uses a spinning block and dodges the attack by moving to the goblin's side. He jumps and uses a charged blade, killing the goblin. Reito breathes heavily and tells Uru to go ahead. They go even further. Reito sees that the light is on, so there is definitely someone here. He asks Uru if he smells anyone here. Uro starts sniffing. At this time, Reito looks around and thinks that the corridor is wide and the ceiling is high. He can probably swing a two-handed sword here without any problems. Uru barks. Reito tensely tells him to be quiet because there is an echo in here, so he can't make noise. They walk forward, come to the door, Uru obediently and very quietly yapping. Reito calls Iris. She says that there is no trap on this door, so let him open it and go inside. He opens the door and sees the cages. Uru starts to growl. Reito immediately covers his mouth and nose because there are a lot of goblin bodies there. Ord tries to help him, but Reito says he's fine. He wonders who could have done something so inhumane. He should check the corpses that haven't had time to decompose yet. They all have bruises and blade marks. Their arms and legs are bent in ways Mother Nature certainly didn't intend. Their fangs have been pulled out and their claws removed. He wonders if this is the work of the monster tamers, but what were they trying to achieve? Then he notices that they don't have a contract magic mark, although the monsters they met outside had a similar mark. He says out loud that none of the corpses have a mark. He asks Iris what happened here. She asks him if he saw the contents of the cells. These are the games the ancient empire plays. They capture and beat goblins to inflame their hatred towards humans. The goblins, who harbor incredible hatred towards humans, become ferocious and begin to attack humans without any fear of death. Reito asks why they do this, and she replies that the Imperials were disappointed that they could only tame one goblin. That's why they think that at the very least, they should produce much stronger goblins that can be tamed further, after all. No matter how strong their hatred for humans, goblins cannot go against the pact mark carved into their skin. Reito desperately punches the ground and says that even if they are monsters, being captured and subjected to such things. Reito asks if there's anyone here at all. He uses presence tracking. He realizes that something is approaching from above. Someone lands right in front of him. It is a man in a black cloak with a knife, asking in a scary voice who they are. Reito is surprised that it is a person. Uru starts to growl. The enemy asks where they came from. He states that this is his home. Reito wonders what kind of home there is in such a place. He says that it is true, the entire abandoned mine is his home. Violators are punishable by death, and then attacks Reito. Reito manages to jump back. Uru attacks the enemy, but the villain hits him, so the wolf falls and howls in pain. The villain laughs and says that these are experiments of a land monster. Then he adds that it is best for someone like him, that is, Reito. He clenches his fist and attacks him with a bullet punch. He falls back. Reito looks at his fist and doesn't understand what this feeling is. He gets up. He screams that he hit him. Reito thinks that his blow the bullet did not harm him at all, and that it is too small for the sword here. He decides to use magic. Suddenly a small goblin falls. Reito looks and realizes that it is a goblin child. The villain clicks his tongue and says that he was just about to beat him up, but he ran away. Reito asks, so it was he who did all this. Who is he? He replies that he is Basil, the great monster tamer, Mr. Basil. Reito wonders if it is really him. His gaze drops and sees the goblin suffering. But with wounds like these, he's better off. He stabs the goblin with his sword, saying he's very sorry. Basil starts to get angry and says that he killed what belongs to him. He asks if he even understands that a little more and he would have obeyed him. Reito shouts at him. Why did he stoop to such things if he is going to be his ally? Then there's no need to test his strength like this. The villain asks what he just said, if he remembers correctly. He remembers a girl telling him that if he hurt them, they would become stronger. Basil says that it seems that's what Gain said. Reito says that he doesn't know who it is, but he will remember the name. Basil doesn't understand it. Rito's fists clench as he sees the goblin killed, shouting at him to get ready because he is about to experience the bitterness of defeat. Basil doesn't understand what's going on. Why is he angry with him? He killed him himself, so he personally has no need for a weak servant. Basil kicks the goblin's corpse and tells it to get out of his way. He says that he died so quickly he calls him a useless carcass of meat, not even fit for service. Reito becomes enraged and punches Basil in the stomach, but he doesn't react, and Reito continues to deliver numerous blows. Basil swings his sword and shouts at him to stop. Reito catches the sword and uses shape-shifting to transform the blade into a strange substance. Basil doesn't understand what he did to him. Reito swings his fist and tells him to get lost. His blow sends Basil flying far away from him. Reito says that he has the blood of more than one monster on his hands, but he, unlike him, was not allowed to kill his own comrades. Basil clicks his tongue, his mask cracking. He stands up and asks how dare he. As soon as he stands up, the mask falls off. Reito stands in shock at his facial features. Basil says that he saw his face. Reito, in shock, asks if he is not human, and he, in rage, starts hitting again, shouting that he is human. He catches his hand and says that it's nothing like that. He grabs him and knocks him down, Basil, his clothes coming off. Reito sees and realizes that his skin color resembles that of a goblin. Basil stands up and says that there will be no forgiveness for anyone who sees his face. Reito realizes that Basil has the characteristics of both a monster and a human. Reito asks him if he is a demon. He yells at him to shut up and says he is a human. Reito deflects the blow and thinks that Basil is so cool because he is a demon. He flies again with his fists and shouts at him to die. Reito thinks that in order to defeat this monster, a powerful blow is needed, so he decides to use a charged attack, tense all his muscles and concentrate all his strength into his fist. After all this, he decides to punch him in the face out of the generosity and kindness of his whole soul. Basil flies far back. He hits the wall and groans in pain. Reito says that he was able to make it like this using magic. Suddenly, a staircase descends behind him. He turns around and sees numerous goblins. Reito says that reinforcements have arrived. The wounded Basil shouts to his servants to help him quickly. The goblins do nothing. Reito realizes that there's definitely something wrong with these goblins. The goblins look at Basil with an evil eye. The demon shouts at them. What are they staring at? Let them help faster. He shouts that they dare not contradict him. They tense up at these words. The goblins walk towards him. Reito realizes that these guys are not paying any attention to him. The goblins surround the monster. He screams what they are doing. He orders them to kill him right now. Suddenly, the goblins begin to attack and bite Basil himself. Reito watches all this with horror. The monster screams that it hurts and asks what they are doing. Reito calls Uru to him. He obeys. Basil shouts at the goblins to get away from him. While Reito is about to leave, Basil shouts at him to slow down. Where is he going? Reito says that there is no longer any point in his presence here. Then he adds that, moreover, rather than bothering him, he should better take care of himself. The goblins pounce on him at once. Loud screams are heard. Reito calls Ururu. They leave together. Reito comes out of the mine and tells Iris that the end has come. She tells him he did well and asks how it went. He tells her it ended with a bad taste in his mouth. He asks her who this Basil is anyway. She tells him, as he has already guessed, a tamer of demonic monsters. The Emir mine is one of the Empire's bases, but it also serves as a place where troublemakers like Basil are locked up. Reito asks what she means by locking up. She says that Basil always ignored orders. He overdid it with the tests. So instead of increasing the number of soldiers, he decreased it. Although the Empire punished him, they continued to use him, but after he killed his immediate superior from whom he received instructions, they had to abandon him. Reito says that he even killed his own people. He doesn't understand why he did it. Iris explains that Basil was a demon with both human and goblin traits. He was an orphan from birth and was taken in and raised by a merchant. Among the demonic creatures, goblins are the weakest kind, and so he was raised under constant trials, so severe that it changed his personality. The merchant planned to sell Basil to a wealthy aristocrat who was fond of monsters, but the deal fell through. Basil grew too large and remained unsold. No longer able to keep him, the merchant sent Basil to the imperial monster tamer. The monster tamer learned that Basil was also a tamer and passed on his knowledge and skills to him. Thus, Basil became one of the subjects of the Empire, and he first achieved recognition as a human when he became a monster tamer. Ultimately, his own violent nature doomed him to be sent to the Emir mine. Reito remembers how he claimed to be human. Now he understands what was behind those words. Reito says that judging by this story alone, he seemed like a man with a terribly tragic past, but he still can't approve of his actions. Reito says that he mentioned the name Gain. Ta says that Gain is one of the Imperial elite. He is one of the most skilled fighters and is responsible for the death of hundreds of soldiers of the kingdom. Even Basil was terrified of him. Reito replies that it is clear to him. So these are the characters the Empire is rich in. He asks her what his next step is. Iris says he seems interested, but before they head to their next destination, she suggests a small detour. He doesn't get it. After a while, Reito appears in front of the village gate and says that by making a detour, she means to visit another abandoned village. He descends from Uro. Someone calls him and asks if he is an adventurer. Reito is surprised that there are people here. All the people scream in surprise and come out. They are glad that help has come. Reito wants to deny it, but he simply asks what happened. They respond that they were attacked by armed goblins, and that these monsters broke through the village's barrier. One says that they not only destroyed the village, they destroyed their food and weapons. They hid in the basement under the village elder's house. Another one says that they sent a request for help to the Adventurers Guild. However, they ask if he is an adventurer. He replies that he is sorry, but no, he is an adventurer. He was just passing by. The mood of the people immediately worsens. Reito looks at them, then apologizes and happily says that if they need food and water, he has enough supplies for everyone, so he asked them to take all of them. They are surprised and ask if it is true, but then they again thank them with a sad face and say that the goblins threw the corpses into the well and they cannot drink from there. Reito remembers and thinks that now he understands why Iris told him to take more food and water. He takes out a lot of food and water from his storage, puts them down and shouts that he will take care of the distribution, so he asks everyone to line up. Then he asks to let him heal the wounded with healing magic. They ask in surprise if he is a healer mage. He says he is a support mage. People are horrified when they hear this and say that these are the ones who have a miserable profession. It turns out that some old man tells them not to be brood. He claims that he is their savior. Reito says that it's okay, it's true, so it's okay. He approaches the wounded man and says that he is starting to heal. The two who named the miserable profession doubt whether everything will be all right. Reito uses enhanced healing. The wound on the man's leg instantly disappears. He is surprised that his leg no longer hurts. His daughter is almost crying next to him. The man himself sheds a tear, asks him for forgiveness and says that he really saved him. He thanks him again. His daughter bows to him and says that he saved them and thanks him too. Reito smiles and the people behind him exclaim in surprise. Everyone got their share of food and water, and he also finished treating the wounds, leaving about 20 people alive in total. He asks everyone to listen and says that it is not safe to stay here, so he suggests that everyone go to the neighboring village. They reluctantly agree. Reito asks if there is a cart in this village, if possible, one that can handle the transport of many people. The boy apologizes and says that they only have a cart. Reito says that it will do and looks at Uro. The cart is chained to the wolf. Reito explains that he will pull the cart, women, children, and the elderly can sit there. He says he's sorry, but he'll ask the men who can walk to move on foot. They say there's no need to worry. One of them will take on the fight against all the monsters that appear on their way. They thank him again. The guy says that since they have decided, then let them start preparing already. They put women and children in. Someone takes the backpack, and the old man approaches Reito, calling him Mr. Adventurer, and asks him to accept this as a token of their gratitude. He says he kept them in reserve, but Reito recognizes the small chest as a disintegration stone and a barrier stone. Reito takes them and says that he accepts them with gratitude. They all walk through the forest. The leader shouts to Reito that they have arrived. Here is the village of Alpultapir. Reito looks and wonders if this is really here. The one looking down comes out and asks only not to tell him that they are residents of the village of Athens. He opens the gate and says how good it is that they survived and asks them to come in. He gives another order to immediately report to the village elder and prepare food and water. The gates close. The village chief says that it must be such a misfortune for them after all. They were attacked by those goblins that everyone is talking about. He asks Reito about it. He replies that it looks like the village was already in disarray when he arrived. He managed to take the survivors with him, but he doesn't know what awaits them next. The village chief says that their village will take care of them. The problem is that survivors like them, but from other villages who were attacked by armed goblins, came here. This is puzzling. Reito asks if there are really that many refugees, and he says he heard that a village nearby was completely destroyed. In this same village, there is a protective wall lined with magical stones. They are relatively safe. But with the growing number of refugees, their food supplies are dwindling. He asked the royal army to exterminate the goblins so that this problem could be solved as soon as possible. But for some reason, they replied that they were investigating. Not even a single soldier was sent in their direction, and they also put a request to the Adventurers Guild. But no one responded, perhaps because the reward was insufficient. The village chief says that this happens everywhere, maybe because there have been more monsters lately, maybe because the adventurers' boards are full of requests from other villages. Reito asks if he can inquire about the reward amount. For a reward of 30 silver coins, the adventurer will remain in the village for an extended period of time, awaiting a goblin raid of unknown numbers and unknown timing. The adventurer must stay until a raid occurs, and with the presence of refugees from other villages, there will be a food shortage. Reito thinks, honestly, even he wouldn't take it on with those conditions. It's just not worth it. He turns around and thinks that this place doesn't look like a poor village. However, his strength is not enough to help them all. He thinks that it is necessary to protect the village. He remembers something, asks for forgiveness, and asks the request they sent to the Adventurers Guild. Does he think he can cancel it? He explains that if they can return the money, he might agree. The headman awkwardly asks if it is really him. Reito says that he wants them to change their conditions. He doesn't understand and asks if he wants them to change. He confirms it. The village chief says that this village is poor. They can't raise the reward higher, something besides the reward. Reito interrupts him and says that he will accept their request and include in it the condition of strengthening the village's defenses. He doesn't understand. Reito says that this is the best option to protect the village. He asks how he will do it. Reito asks to show him the surroundings first. They show him the walls. Reito touches them and says that the wall is very dilapidated. The village chief says that there weren't many monsters in the area that could attack them, so the repairs were delayed. Reito thinks that even though they actually have a defensive wall, armed goblins can easily break through it. Perhaps he can repair the wall later with the right material and alchemy skill. He suggests that they make a ditch. They don't understand and say that with a huge ditch behind the wall, it won't be so easy to get into the village. The soldiers are indignant that they are standing there silently. He dared to ask for such an impossible thing, as he thinks how much effort and time it will take to make a ditch. The village chief thinks it's a good idea, but they don't have the time or manpower to make a moat that would encircle the entire village. Reito says it's okay. He sits down, puts his hands on the floor and uses the digger, making a hole around the walls. He says that's just right and asks the others what they think.